weekday mornings from 10 to 11. It's time to get up and get your day started. It's Sports 56 mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Now, here are your hosts, Greg and Eli.
What a beautiful day we had yesterday in Memphis and the entire Mid-South. We got another one on tap for today. It's a little easier waking up this early in the morning when it's not 10 degrees outside. Obviously, today, following up yesterday, is going to be absolutely beautiful. There's always a little extra in your giddy up, I think, when you have a nice day in store, and that's what we have today. We have a great show in store for you today as we welcome you in to Sports 56 Mornings, the Wednesday, January 29th, 2025 edition of the program. Greg Gaston, Eli Savoy, Elijah Seegers, a cast of thousands here in the Family Leisure Studios, quite crowded. At Family Leisure, they got their floor model sale going on. I'm not sure for how much longer, but right now, all the 2024 inventory, they have to ship out. So they are giving you an opportunity to save a lot of money on everything from cold plunges to hot tubs to pool tables to ping pong tables, on and on and on. It's their floor model sale. They're making room for the 2025 inventory. So what's ever out there right now, you're going to get a great deal. So check them out. 2120 Whitten Road, just north of I-40. As I mentioned, gorgeous day yesterday. Today, same deal, 40 degrees. Again, it's a lot different. Going outside's 40 rather than 10. The high today, 64, is what the forecast calls for. Partly cloudy skies this morning. Will become a bit overcast during the afternoon, but you're going to see bits of sunshine. Then tonight, 51. Showers will be developing this evening. Pretty steady overnight. And then your Thursday, although warm at 66 for a high and only 55 for a low, looks like it will be a rainy Thursday. But the weekend, Friday looks great. The weekend looks great. So take advantage of it. Monday, they're calling for possibly temperatures in the 70s. Coming up on the program today, our Wednesday regulars, all on tap. Jerry Palm at 8:25. We'll get his latest bracketology. Last week, we talked about having him dropped Memphis a couple of lines in his bracketology last week. We'll see if they moved up at all after the carnage that has happened around the country. And, of course, Memphis picking up 2 wins last week. At 9:05, we'll talk all things Grizzlies with DeMichael Cole after that disappointing performance in New York against the Knicks the other day. They'll play the Houston Rockets tomorrow night at home. And then at 9:25, we'll talk Memphis Tigers basketball with Parth Upadhyay from the Daily Memphian. The Tigers will hit the road today, fly down to New Orleans for a game with Tulane tomorrow night, and then Sunday they'll be in Houston for a game against Rice before returning home next Wednesday to host the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. We got lots from college basketball, including games from last night. We got more Grizzlies news from off the court, and it's not all bad. It's some good news, certainly. The Senior Bowl coming up, which will include Seth Hennigan, and so far he's looked pretty darn good in practice this week, according to all reports. We got NFL news as well. And we'll take your calls and texts on the Sissy's Log Cabin listener lines at 901-360-8255. That's what's in store for your Wednesday edition of Sports 56 Mornings. How are you today?
I am fabulous.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You feeling much better from
I
a couple
like
days ago?
60-degree weather.
I'm sure you do. I mean, look, I like nip in the air. I don't like it 20 degrees. I'm not a maniac, but there's just something about 60s, 50s, high 50s, just that crisp. As long as it's not, the wind's not blowing, I'm fine with that. I don't want 98 degrees and 90% humidity because that's coming down the road where you're going to sweat even while driving in your air-conditioned car. I don't like that, but I love the 60s, and we're going to have that today. And like I said, Monday looks like we may even reach 70. Now, is the cold gone for good? Probably not. It's Memphis.
It is probably not, but I would love for it to stay this way and continue right into spring without ever getting cold again. However, yes, I know that is probably not going to happen.
Speaking of cold, Bronny James. By the way, you still owe me a lunch bet from the Bronny James bet. I cannot believe the Lakers and J.J. Redick. Last night, and again, the Lakers are fighting for their playoff lives. And I know AD went down with an injury in that game, but AD's playing, LeBron's playing, Austin Reeves is playing, the regular cast of characters. Bronny James gets PT in the second quarter and then comes in later in the game as well. He plays 15 minutes, Bronny James. He goes 0 for 5. Bronny James has played in 13 games this year for the Lakers. He has made one shot. He has made one shot. His stats for the season, he is shooting from the field 6.3%. He is shooting 0% from three. He is averaging 0.4 rebounds, 0.3 assists, 0.2 blocks, 0.2 steals. You talk about nepotism, and we all knew this was coming. And I know he's put up some decent G League games. Hell, Elijah steps on the court. He's going for 25 and 12 rebounds in a G League game. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You want to throw him in at the end of a game like Yuki Kawamura? That's fine. He's your novelty, right? You're playing him in the second quarter, meaningful minutes in a very important game, which you lose, by the way, to Philadelphia without Joel Embiid, without Paul George, 118 to 104. Come on. What are we doing here?
Yeah, J.J. Redick seemed surprised that it didn't go well. Having Bronny try and guard Tyrese Maxey, surprisingly, that didn't work out well for the Lakers. But yeah, he has no business whatsoever being on an NBA roster, but they've put him there. And now last night, I guess Redick said that he had been, giving him some good minutes in the G League, and so he thought maybe he could bring some energy, and that didn't go well, which is probably the least surprising thing you could imagine, that putting Bronny in key minutes did not go well.
He's the quintessential decent G League player, not great G League player, decent G League player, horrible NBA player. He does not belong there. We know why he's there. LeBron James has a little bit of clout. It was a joke. Maxey went for 43. Obviously not all on Bronny, but 43 points for Tyrese Maxey. Again, George is out. Embiid's still out. The Sixers are a mess. And the Lakers lose by 14 to them in a game they really needed to win. So, anyway, J.J. Redick and some of the decision-making is beyond me. The Grizzlies will return to action tomorrow against the Houston Rockets. The Rockets played last night and knocked off the Hawks 100-96. That was a game that was rescheduled from January 11th when they had the snow in Atlanta, and it shut things down for a couple of days. But the Rockets get the win. Jalen Green goes off for 25 points. Let me check real quick what Dillon did. Oh, he still attempted 8 3-pointers. He made 3 of them, coming off that 10 for 15 3-point performance. So again, the hope is that Dillon will jack up about 20 shots against the Grizzlies tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean he's coming in hot, so he's feeling confident, I'm sure.
The Grizzlies got some news from off the court yesterday. Good news. Zach Edey, Jalen Wells, both named to the NBA Rising Stars game. That'll be played on Friday, February 14th.
Yeah, no surprise. I mean, there was no doubt that those two were going to be in that game. If Gigi Jackson had been playing throughout the year, probably a good chance he would have been on the part of the sophomore group as well. But, they've been two of the better rookies, so no surprise they'll be part of that, and that will be just like the actual All-Star games, I guess you got to call them. I don't know how we're terming it these days, and the winning team that comes out of the Rising Stars Challenge will be a part of the tournament of the actual All-Stars. That's how they will have the fourth team to the little tournament that they will play amongst the All-Stars. So good for those guys. Again, for Jalen Wells to do that as a second-round pick and do the things he's done this year, pretty incredible.
Yeah, explain that again to me, how they're going to work that All-Star. Because when I saw that yesterday, I had no idea that the winner of that Rising Stars game is coming out of that to play against the actual All-Stars themselves?
Yeah, I mean, again,
So there's 4 teams.
the format of the All-Star game is what the Rising Stars has been, and the winning team of the Rising Stars will be the 4th team for the actual All-Star games. Again, I don't know if you call it All-Star games, whatever.
Right.
Because there's only 3 teams out of the original 24 All-Stars, so they need a 4th team, and that's the winner of the Rising Stars.
How much do they play? How long are the games?
The games are going to 40, I believe it is, if I remember correctly.
Do you have to win by 2?
I don't believe so. I think it's 40 if I remember what they and I don't know if that's the same for the Rising Stars or not, but I think it is. But the All-Star games, I believe those are going to 40. There was originally talk the championship game would be shorter, but I think if I remember right, when they officially announced it, that it was all going to be the same.
You need to do the Elam ending.
It is.
Oh, is it?
I mean,
okay, because
they're playing to a score. So yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Well, the Elam ending, the score is not determined until. No, it's not determined before the game starts. Correct?
no, but
Right?
I mean, they're
Yeah. So this is it's a little different. It's a little bit different take on the Elam ending. Tomorrow night, we will find out if Jaren Jackson Jr. has made the Western Conference All-Star team as a reserve. We'll find out all the reserves. Do you know what time that'll be announced?
It's on the TNT.
On the TNT broadcast?
I'm assuming it's on the pregame like they normally do.
Elijah, what do you think? Tripp going to make the All-Star team?
I think so. I think that him and Alperen Sengun will both make it, but if I had to put it from 1 to 100, I am 90% confident that Jaren Jackson Jr. will be named an All-Star tomorrow.
So who's going to get, obviously there's a lot of players, but who of significance is going to be left off that Western Conference team? Because we were talking about this weeks ago, that there's a battle going on with several guys. Jalen Williams we threw in, Sengun we threw in there. A couple of the big-name guys who may not be having as good a season, but they're big names. I mean, who do you think is going to get left off of significance?
I think it will be Jalen Williams out of those 3. I think that he'll probably get in the place of an injured All-Star. I think he'll get in that way. But I do think that they will put in Jaren Jackson and Alperen Sengun over Jalen Williams or all 3. I think that's an option as well. And then when you get to that point, I don't even know who would be next in line. But I think out of that group of 3, I think Jalen Williams would be the odd man out at this point.
Well, I think you're right. I think Jackson and Sengun will get in. Do you believe so as well, Eli?
Yes.
Okay, and what's interesting is Jalen Williams' coach at Oklahoma City is the one making those decisions. So I wonder how he looks at it. There are some people that would put their guys in. There's other people that, it looks bad on me if I put my guys in. But Jalen Williams is deserving. There are going to be good players left off, but we'll find that out tomorrow. John Morant, unfortunately, will not be an All-Star. John Morant has not played, and there's no restrictions for the All-Star game. There are, of course, for All-NBA and other things, postseason awards, and he's already hit that threshold, unfortunately. But he's just not good enough this year to be an All-Star. He's still one of, if not the most exciting players in the NBA, and he's still the leader of this Grizzlies team, although he had a horrible game in New York, as did the entire team. But in response to, I guess, a lot of criticism on social media, at least on X, John Morant yesterday was making the rounds that he had deactivated his X media account. Big deal? Does it matter? Anyone? Bueller?
No, I don't think it matters at all. I don't care. I certainly don't care about it.
I think it's intelligent. It's a smart move because he is obviously involved in social media. Some players are not, but in this day and age, I would think younger players probably deal a lot with social media, and there's going to be a lot of negativity, probably more negativity than positivity. So why read that stuff, especially if it affects you? There are some that it's water off the back. but there's others that either respond to it, respond angrily, may say something that they shouldn't. But the smart thing, in my opinion, would be, especially guys who are excitable, and I would say Ja is, to just do away with it. Don't worry about it. Who cares what Joe Q Public is saying about, who cares what we're saying about that performance or play of anybody? The bottom line is you have to be mentally set to go, 100% mentally, and obviously physically as well, and then you're in a better state. So I think that's probably a good move for Ja.
Oh, it would be a great move for a whole bunch of people in the world to get off of X. But, he's still got like his Instagram or whatever. So I don't like whatever.
I'm not on Instagram, so
whatever it takes to get his head right or whatever. It does not matter to me whatsoever. It is generally a toxic dumpster of a place. So if you can't stay off of it and can't and it affects you, then yes, I would recommend getting off of it.
I don't know off the top of my head how many Grizzlies I follow. I know I follow John Morant. I believe I follow Des Bain. He's on there every once in a while. But I don't think I even have looked to see if others are on X. For example, is Jaren Jackson Jr. on X? Do you know, Elijah?
No
You're a young guy into this social media thing.
I think I've seen him post in the last few days, yes.
Okay. I'm just curious because there's some players that may completely stay off it, but it's very hard. It's very enticing for the younger generation because we live in now a social media world. It's hard to stay off that. What I would suggest, if they're on it, is when they want to post something, post it, and that's it. Move on. Don't read reaction. When I post something, I don't read the comments. There's always going to be some jackass. It's always going to piss me off. So I don't read the comments. And I hate that for those who are loyal followers of mine because they might be answering a question or giving their opinion, and I love to hear their opinion. But I can't do it because there's going to be one that's going to make me mad, and then I'm going to go off. So I would suggest that with the players. I'm not that important. They are, right? They are for their team. They have to be mentally 100% ready to go. And Thursday night, I think Thursday night, while it's still mid-season, we got an all-star break coming up. The trade deadline, by the way, a week from tomorrow. I think it's an important game tomorrow. What do you think? I know they've already lost the season series to Houston. I understand that. But I think it's an important game.
It's the same thing as the last game against Houston. Yeah, it would be nice to not get swept in the season series. But in the end, if you do, it means nothing when you get to the postseason. They've been right in every game against you. Now, if Houston came in here and beat them by 30, that might be a little concerning, especially coming off of the performance at New York. But
that's why I bring that up.
If they come in and you have another close game that goes down to the wire and you end up coming up a little bit short, yeah, it's disappointing that you've gotten swept by Houston, especially when you're battling with them right now in the standings. But in the end, it's not like it means that much to it.
I bring it up because of the performance against the Knicks. I want to see them bounce back, get back to playing Grizzlies basketball, which I think they will. Like you said, they have battled the Rockets. They've had good games against the Rockets. I think, one game was a blowout? Was one game a pretty bad loss?
I think they've had 9.
Were they all close? Okay, but either way, I know they've had close games against Houston. So I just want to see that. And they're back home.
But they led by double digits in both games at Houston, I'm pretty sure.
You hate to lose those games. But the Rockets come in as the hottest team in the West and tied for the longest winning streak currently in the NBA. They've won 4 in a row. Also, the Knicks have won 4 in a row, who obviously beat the Grizzlies on Monday. And the Toronto Raptors, of all teams, have won 4 in a row. And Memphis will be visiting Toronto here very soon.
The first game in Houston, the Grizzlies had the double-digit lead early, but then Houston ended up beating them by 20.
Yeah, I thought there was one that got out of hand.
The second half. And the last two have been a 4-point game and a 2-point game.
Okay. So, again, that's why I look at this as an important game. Win or lose, I want to see them play Grizzlies basketball. Grizzlies still have the second best point differential in the West. Oklahoma City is plus 12.3. The Grizzlies are plus 7.7. And then Houston is plus 5.7. In fact, if I look at the entire NBA, Cleveland plus 9.7, Boston plus 8.7. There's only 3 teams ahead of the Grizzlies. Again, Monday was one of those, or not Monday, but when was the game in New York? Saturday?
Monday.
Okay, I was right. So it was Monday. Did they tie one on Sunday? You go to the Big Apple once a year when you're in the Western Conference. There's a few things to do in New York, I've been told. I'm not saying they did, but more than likely they did. And maybe they weren't ready to go because they were punked in that game. It's one game. Hopefully it's what Elijah said yesterday. It's a one-off. But we'll see. Against the more physical teams, they've struggled a little bit. A little bit. So we'll see how they bounce back tomorrow. All right.
By the way, the All-Star games, all of them are 240 points.
Okay. All right, speaking of bouncing back, or bouncing, we're going to bounce for a second. We're going to come back. We got plenty of college basketball. The Vols go down once again last night at home at Thompson Bowling. We will talk about that on the program. We'll take your calls and texts on the Sissy's Log Cabin listener lines at 901-360-8255. I want to tell you folks about Shoot 360 Memphis. I've been talking about them now for quite some time, and I'm going to emphasize once again, if you have a family member, you have a son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, niece, nephew, whatever the case may be, maybe yourself, maybe you're just a baller, and you want to become a better basketball player, you want to have fun doing so, using all the modern technology, modern analytics, and the great coaching that they provide, Shoot 360 Memphis is the place for you. And for all you coaches out there, they also have free coaching clinics. Why wouldn't you want to go and listen to some of the best coaches, including a former Memphis Grizzlies assistant coach, Scott Adebato? He's part of that staff. They have a number of veteran coaches to help you better your game in the game of basketball. You can take those basketball skills to the next level. Players like Steph Curry, you may have heard of him, actually have used this method. Shoot 360 is not only in Memphis, it's around the country. It's a revolutionary basketball training facility that combines cutting-edge technology with gamification, provides instant objective feedback with hands-on, one-on-one expert coaching. Even for the little kids, right? You're going to learn the basic fundamentals and do so by having fun with the gamification. I had my 2 grandsons over there one day, and they're throwing bounce passes and chest passes. That's what they call for. They're 5 years old. They're hitting targets. They're scoring points for doing so. So they're having fun playing a game while learning the skills of basketball. The new Cordova facility, newly renovated 50,000 square foot facility. 2 NBA regulation size courts, 3 high school size courts, 4 shooting bays with Shoot 360 technology. You've never seen anything like this in the game of basketball as far as skills and facilities to better your game. Sure, you can go to the blacktop and shoot basketball all day. You're going to get better. The more you shoot, you're going to get better. But now you have the expert coaching that will show you right there by using modern analytics just how good you are and what you have to do to improve. You can become a member monthly. A monthly membership, all you need to do is go online to Shoot 360 Memphis. Head over to Cordova or Collierville, as they have 2 locations, or give them a call. Tell them you want a tour of the facility, and then sign up for a month. If you like it, keep going. If you don't, no harm, no foul. The number in Cordova, 901-779-3176, and Collierville, 901-316-5500. The future of basketball training is here at Shoot 360 Memphis. You're tuned in to Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Fall is football at the Owner's Box Sports Bar and Grill in Lakeland, Town Square. Monday through Friday, it's happy hour from 3 to 6. $1 off all draft meals, $5 off meal drinks, $4.50 for house wine, mozzarella sticks, queso, corn dogs, and beer. Friday night lights from 7 o'clock. Dining in my grill, Wednesday, 5 a.m. Free. I'll watch college football and every pro game. All at the Owner's Box Sports Bar and Grill in Lakeland. Highway 70, fall is football.
every Friday 11 to 2. Ask about the world-famous split dog and authentic Chicago or New York dog. Try the leaner side of Dyers with a grilled chicken sandwich or freshly made salad. Also serving lakes, Delta-raised catfish, Pasquale's tamales, and a customer favorite hand-breaded onion ring. Dyers, serving world-famous burgers, dogs, and shakes. Call your local store in Town Square.
When you're working outdoors, unpredictability is real. So tackle the toughest jobs with the 2025 Honda Pioneer 700. This rugged side-by-side brings power to any party with a reliable tool for towing and smooth shifting through trails. And you can choose between 3 trims: Standard, Deluxe, or the Trim Timber First Edition. Ultimate Hamlin's Adventures. See the 2025 Honda Pioneer 700 today at DeSoto Honda, 5657 Hill Road in Old Listen each and every Sunday morning at 11 to join Ottawa Presbyterian Church for worship. Ottawa is the PCUSA Church in Memphis. Sports 56 traffic.
Good morning. Traffic's on the increase already. Certain sections of Summer Avenue coming inbound. Austin P Highway looks good right now on that ramp to I-40. It won't be long before it builds over here on I-40 from Covington Pike all the way over to Watkins right there at the 101 connector. Hey, Weimer's Jewelry, conveniently located 7525 Highway 64, is your last-minute Valentine's Day shopping. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Now back to Sports 56 morning on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Here once again, Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy.
Welcome back, everybody. 7:27 is the time.
Got a text here on the Sissy's Log Cabin listener line at 360-8255, 360-8255. Texter says, Ja has to stay in the court and stop riding the pine for every ache and pain that he has. Old school players just didn't do a lot of that back in the day. They were hungry to always be on the court. Those players still had long careers as well. Still a huge Ja fan, but the Grizzlies will never get the consistency they need until he can be consistent in staying on the court.
Yes, there's some truth to that. He's not the only one in the NBA, and there are some players certainly that have that old school mentality. They're going to play through injuries, but for the most part, they don't. They're shut down by the organization because the investments are so steep. They put so much money into the investment of these players. So when the player is told, even though they want to play, that it's better that you sit 2 to 3 weeks while we make sure that your injury, you're cured of your ills and you're 100% before we put you back on the court, they're fine with it. Because this is not a deal where they have to play a certain amount of games. Now, there's some stipulations in some contracts, games played, things of that nature. But for the most part, these contracts are incredibly high, you know, as far as compared to what the players were playing for in the 70s and the 80s, even in the early 90s. If you weren't Michael Jordan, right? Players were not making the kind of coin they make today. But the competitiveness of those players, I still think it's there. I mean, Ja, I think, is as competitive as anybody. But whether it's Kleiman, and more than likely it is, or whether it's Taylor, maybe he has a say in it, they're going to side on the cautious side of things rather than go out there in what is one of 82 games and decide to sit the guy that day. Now, again, I think they're a little bit worse than other teams in the sense that they are lengthy, the time that these players are on the shelf compared to some other teams. Like Karl Anthony Towns, he had that finger injury, that thumb injury, whatever it was, a couple weeks, he's back playing. So some teams look at it differently. The minutes that Tom Thibodeau uses with his players, especially his starters, is a lot different than what the Grizzlies do. But I would agree. I would tend to agree for the most part with the texter. And Ja is pivotal for this team. He has to be on the court. Maybe this will be the year when they'll be able to have him for the entire postseason. And hopefully it's a long postseason run.
Well, here's the thing. If you think Ja in these games he's sitting out are all games that's Ja's decision, That's not true at all. There are many games where Ja would love to play, and other players too,
Like I
not
said.
just Ja, and are not. There have been games where the team where he was supposed to sit out, and Ja told him he wasn't sitting out and has played. They want to play a lot of these, but they also, the understanding that the team is paying them, and you're paying somebody $50 million a year, you do get to have a little say in, hey, if we want to sit you out, we'll sit you out in order to
have a lot
preserve
of-
you.
Yes, they have a lot to say.
And the fact that the Grizzlies have never been healthy for the postseason, they should be doing everything they need to be doing right now is trying to figure out how do we stay healthy for the postseason.
Right, that's the big picture. So to some extent, it's understandable. However, there are those players, and this is why they are considered historically the best players of all time, that would play no matter what. The flu game, Michael Jordan. LeBron James plays through a lot of injuries. I mean, he has to be really beaten up for him to sit out. Maybe now he'll sit out a little bit more, knowing that it's important for him to get a little more rest at his age for the postseason run. But for the most part, those guys, the best of the best, they're probably not going to be told what to do by the organization. They're going to probably make that decision for themselves. But for the most part, the bulk of the players, they're at the mercy of management. And in today's game, with the investment so high, they're going to, again, be very cautious with players' injuries. The Grizzlies just a little bit more so than most teams, in my opinion. I just look at the length of injuries, the length of the guys being out, how long they're out, the duration compared to other similar injuries in other organizations. Just seems to be a little bit more for the Grizzlies. But if it works, it works. Hopefully they'll be healthy. But they have not been healthy in the postseason. And I'm not just talking about last year. So can they be healthy while still giving players enough time to rest and to mend from their injuries that they had this year? But I think that texter's absolutely right on. All right, last night, college basketball. Tennessee, Kentucky, battle-ranked teams, rivals go at it at Thompson Bowling, and Kentucky gets the win, 78-73. Very consistent scoring from the Wildcats. All 5 of their starters were in double-figure scoring. For Tennessee, Igor Milicic had 19 points, 9 rebounds. Chaz Lanier at 15. Zakai Ziegler had 13, but only 5 of 18 from the field. I think he got banged up a little bit in this game. But there's just something. We were talking about this the other day, maybe even yesterday. Tennessee, I know, is a very good team, a very capable team. But I just think there's something amiss. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that toughness from Dalton Connect, who's now gone. But I think they're not as good as last year. Doesn't mean they won't make a run, because they have all the talent in the world. If they stay healthy, they're certainly a team you got to look at to be an Elite 8, Final 4 type team. But when I watch them, it seems like there's something missing. They don't have enough consistent scoring. Lanier has to go off. There's a lot of dependency on Ziegler, who's had an incredible career. But teams that want to get physical, he's a strong guy, don't get me wrong, but he's a little guy. You bump him around a little bit. That's what you got to do. Milicic has to be like this every game. He's too inconsistent.
Well, they fell way too in love with the three-point shot last night, especially Ziegler. And Ziegler, really for the year, I think has probably shot too many threes. He's way more effective using his quickness to get in the lane and either score himself, or usually set up other guys. He's great at getting in the lane and then doing the lob to guys. But he was 1 for 11 from 3 last night.
Ugh.
They were 11 of 45. 45 threes is way too much for that team to be taking, other than Lanier, really, and Milicic here and there. And Ziegler, that's fine. And they got a lot of open ones. But
45 threes they took?
Dubar off the bench took 7 of them. He should not be shooting that many threes. And Ziegler shooting 11 threes. It was scary there at the end of the first half when Ziegler hyperextended that knee and then ran off the court. Certainly feared the worst there. And as we talked to Rick Barnes, he said for him to run off the court certainly is very scary. Now, luckily, he was able to come right back in the second half, and I think he might have played the entire second half. But that was scary as heck to watch that because
Well, you lose him, your season's done.
that's that hyperextended knee is how an ACL can go in a hurry. But yeah, I mean, like Kentucky made one more three on 21 fewer attempts than what Tennessee did. I mean, it was just at the end of the game, the last few minutes, all Tennessee was doing was shooting threes. And they didn't have to at that point. They were still just fine to go to the basket. They're number one at defending the three-point line, and Kentucky shoots 50% from there. That's Kentucky without two of their best players. We got no Lamont Butler. Carr tried to play, but he only played a minute, and he was not healthy enough to go. So that's an impressive, really impressive road win for them to go in there and get that win without two of their best players, putting up 78 points on that Tennessee defense without two of their best scorers. Amari Williams was just owned the glass. It felt like he got every rebound in that game. Brea, who had been struggling actually a little bit from three-point land, he had a nice game. Jackson Robinson was incredible. That was just a really good performance by Kentucky.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday, the contrasting styles. Kentucky wants to score a lot. Tennessee plays great defense. They want to limit teams' possibilities offensively. I took Kentucky. I just had a feeling that Kentucky was going to win that game. And again, maybe the Zakai Ziegler early injury kind of took things or made things a little bit dicey for Tennessee. They had them in the second half. They did. They had their opportunities, but they did fall in love with three. Elsewhere in the SEC, Texas A&M, 13th ranked in the country, knocked off Oklahoma at home, 75-68, and Georgia at home over South Carolina, 71-60.
That Texas A&M Oklahoma, the box score from that game is one of the true gems of the world.
You're looking at box scores,
trying to figure out how Texas A&M could have possibly won that game. Texas A&M 4 for 24 from three-point range, while Oklahoma was 10 for 22. A&M shooting 37% overall. Oklahoma shoots 47% overall, and yet A&M wins the game quite comfortably.
Well, I could tell you right now, I'm looking at the box score. This is the first time.
It's rebounding. It's always rebounding with Texas A&M.
Texas A&M 47-19 advantage in rebounding.
They had 21 offensive rebounds.
47-19.
Texas A&M is them in Florida. Like, you have to figure out a way to keep those teams off the offensive glass.
Right.
And they both oftentimes will just shoot till they miss. And A&M shot 35 free throws in the game because it is an aggressive, physical game every time you play Texas A&M. And if the officials call it that way, they'll shoot a bunch of free throws. But it is a relentless attack of rebounds when you play Texas A&M in Florida.
Other top 25 games last night, Michigan State has been on a roll. Again, Memphis beat them in Hawaii, but they have been playing really good basketball. They beat Minnesota 73-51. Marquette struggled in the first half at Butler. Like I said yesterday, I thought they would. I don't know if they still may have covered. They won by 9. I forgot what the line was, but 78-69, Marquette gets a win. But it was a struggle there in Indianapolis for a while. Kansas, speaking of struggle, I just don't think Kansas is that good. They beat UCF 91-87. Probably should have lost that game. But down the stretch, they made some free throws and was able to hold off the Golden Knights.
Yeah, it is. It's been a struggle. They're certainly not what you would expect out of this Kansas team. It's one of the most talented in the country. Dickinson has not had quite the year that he was expected. They're without Harris right now, which certainly hurts them. They're still really good, but yeah, something just seems a little off with them right now.
St. John's talked about Pitino yesterday. What a difference a coach makes. They blew out Georgetown 66-41. St. John's, I believe, is 9-1 in the Big East. And Louisville, again, you change the coach. Sometimes you change the fortunes. They beat Wake Forest 72-59. And then there was the non-top 25 game that piqued my interest. North Carolina at Pitt. And Pitt's a good team. North Carolina can be a really good team, but at times they play mediocre. And I thought they would go into Pittsburgh and win this game. I was wrong. Pittsburgh wins 73-65. North Carolina drops to 13-9 and 6-4 in what is considered an off year for the ACC. So now here comes the chorus of the people out there calling for Hubert Davis's head. Now, I looked up the numbers for Hubert Davis since taking over at Carolina. 4 years, 29-10 that first year. You could say he had Roy's players. Was it Roy? Did he replace?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 20-13 second year. But last year they were 29-8. And this year 13-9. I think it's a little ludicrous, but I'm not part of that North Carolina establishment, and all that matters is what the boosters are saying, the deep-pocketed ones. But Hubert Davis is catching a lot of flack with that North Carolina team, which is very talented, led by R.J. Davis, and just 13-9, 6-4.
Yeah, Davis hasn't had a great year by any means, but they should be better than they are. I mean, bottom line. I mean, with that backcourt of Davis, Cadeau, and Trimble, they should be way better than what they are, especially in the ACC. They don't defend. They are small with that backcourt that they have, and but yeah, they just I don't know. I don't know what Obviously, he created some expectations with the Final Four run, but that was a team that really wasn't that good. They got hot in the postseason. That created expectations for the following year. They just weren't that good. They weren't good enough. And then this year, you looked at that roster and thought, yeah, this should certainly be it. And it hasn't worked again. So I don't know what the issues are, but I know at North Carolina, they don't take kindly to losing. And especially if you start missing tournaments and things like that, that does not go well, despite how successful you might have been right off the bat. And whether you're a former player there, just ask Matt Doherty. They will turn on you in a hurry at North Carolina.
I saw those guys up close and personal, albeit a preseason game, an exhibition game in Huntsville when they played Memphis.
They played Memphis at FedEx Forum.
That's where I saw them. Who did I see in Huntsville? Alabama, that's right. So I've seen them both. Two teams that obviously are going in different directions right now, with Alabama up near the top and North Carolina outside the top 25. But I saw both those teams. North Carolina, here's the difference. Alabama, a different style. Obviously, they're dependent on the three-point shot. But they have, and we talked about something similar yesterday about, what was it that we were talking about? We were talking about, it was Utah. The other day, whatever, we were talking about the Jazz, and your comments were exactly what Brevin Knight had said to me, which I thought was kind of interesting, that they had similar guys. You had mentioned similar, like all the bigs were the same, all the guards were the same. The North Carolina guards, they're all good, but they're all the same. There's not enough variety in what they are. Trimble and Davis and Cadeau. These guys are very similar players. Alabama's got all kinds of different things going on with that team. And so maybe there is something to that even though you have a lot of talent, if it's similar talent, it may not work. It needs to be maybe a little difference, a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Variety, I guess, for a lack of better terms, in what you bring to the table with your perimeter. For Memphis, you got a guy like Haggerty, who's a little bigger, 6'5". He goes in the paint. He absorbs contact. He scores. Hunter's smaller. Hunter's really, really fast. Hunter still can get to the hole, but he's a little more shifty. And then you have a three-point knockdown shooter in Colby Rogers. They're different styles. I think styles sometimes make teams. So anyway, that's an issue with North Carolina. And then one other note from college basketball. You had a brawl last night in the stands. I don't know if you saw this, Eli or Elijah. Virginia Commonwealth St. Louis game. Did you see the brawl going on?
I saw the clips of it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is, you get into a little bit of a thing, maybe a pushing match between two people. Now, Football after a day of tailgating, especially in the NFL, we've seen that happen. College basketballs that are not on the court, very rare. You don't see them often. This isn't the Malice in the Palace, but this had nothing to do with the players or the coaches. This was all the fans. It got really nasty there for a while. I was looking at the video just 2 seconds ago that they played it again on ESPN.com. But if you haven't seen it, yeah, it was more than just a couple of people shoving each other.
What, delayed the game for like 7 minutes?
It did. It was the Virginia Commonwealth St. Louis game. I think the Billikens ended up winning, if I'm not mistaken. I think they went on to get that dub.
Raider Corey texted. He says, just my opinion, but Rick Barnes is overrated to me. I don't agree with that. I don't think Rick Barnes gets nearly enough credit for what he's done at Tennessee. He perennial has them now as one of as a top 10 team.
Well, he had a lot of success at Texas. I mean, he's a successful coach, but I'm not going to go as far as what Corey says, but I don't think I'll go as far as what you said. I think it's more in the middle. He's a good coach. He's a proven winner. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but maybe with all the talent that he's been able to bring in and the teams he's had, he's underachieved when it comes to Final Four appearances, national championships, that type of stuff. Most people would say he has.
When people talk about the top coaches in America, nobody's mentioning Rick Barnes. And all he's done is has a program that, again, has very little history of success, no Final Fours, and just every year has them in the top 10. Mm-hmm. And even when one group cycles out, his recruiting is amazing what he's done there.
Well, here's the way you can tell whether somebody is not living up to the expectations or is overrated, underrated, is what's the reaction from the Tennessee faithful. And I think it's been quiet. So I believe Tennessee basketball fans, and again, Tennessee basketball, men's basketball is what, third? Behind Tennessee football and women's basketball, and baseball's making a run after their natty last year. But still, there is a lot of basketball fans out there. They want success at Tennessee, and I haven't heard too many people complaining about Rick Barnes. So I'll buy into that. But to me, I think it's somewhere in the middle between what you and Corey had to say.
Tiger Steve says, how is Tennessee still in the top 10? Well, again, when they do lose games, it's never a bad loss because it's the SEC. And last night was the first time they've lost a home game all year. And they'll probably fall out of the top 10. Now, they've got Florida coming up on Saturday. So if they beat Florida, they'll have lost to Kentucky, but then they'll turn around and beat a top 10 team. So They'll have depending on what happens around them. But, obviously the Vanderbilt loss is the worst loss. But the other three losses are Florida, Auburn, and Kentucky.
Yeah, there's no bad losses in the bunch. I told you where they would be in the rankings this week after what happened. A couple of teams were going to move up. They were going to drop down a couple of spots. But, yeah, I would imagine if they lose, well, they're definitely out of the top 10 if they lose to Florida. If they beat Florida, they're probably still where they are. They probably won't even move.
Again, they fell last week, and they shouldn't. I mean, they lost a 2-point game on the road to the number one team in America, but voters are weird, so they think that because they lost, they have to drop. But, for what they've done and just looking at their resume and everything else, they would deserve to be probably a top 10 team.
All right. We'll take a timeout, come back with much, much more, wrapping up hour number 1. This is Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56, 98.5 FM.
Be sure to follow us at Sports56 WHBQ on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch live video of our shows, stay up to date with station events, and have chances to win prizes. Don't miss out on anything that's going on. Follow us at Sports56 WHBQ. The Family Leisure floor model sale is happening right now through the end of January. Family Leisure has got to get rid of all the 2024 inventory because all the new 2025 items are starting to arrive. All floor models are up to 50% off. You want a cold plunge tub? They start at $49.99. Go the other route with a hot tub. Get $3,000 off with free steps and chemicals. Family Leisure has pool tables, arcades, ping pong, air hockey, even baseball tables from 20 to 60% off. Want beer seating? Family Leisure has beer seating up to 75% off. Plus, now's the time to start thinking about pool seats. You can buy it around
taking care of beerness in Memphis, right on the river with Grind City Brewing and all of their great products. Look, this was a dream come true for a father and son duo. And if you have not been to that brewery right on the river, just to the north of downtown, you're really missing something special. And now you can't miss their products. Wherever you go, you see a brand new label. It's clean, it's beautiful, it's distinctive. You'll know Grind City Brewing, and of course you know their products like Poppy's Pills, that great Pilsner, or Tiger Tail, that very creative craft malt liquor. There's the new Thaddeus Amber Lager. That is absolutely a great light beer. There's the India Pale called God Hopper. It's outstanding. And then there's the Belga, the Belgian-style wheat ale. They keep bringing hits at Grind City Brewing.
I'm Gary York. I'm the service director of Lexus in Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place where you get your oil changed. We do glass repair, windshield replacement, recalibration of your camera and sonar systems, even wheel repair, tire replacement, all the things you would expect from a luxury automotive dealer. Please check out our website. You can schedule your appointment, check out our specials, hours of operation, or if you'd like to do it in person, please reach out to one of our associates at 912-715-5199.
The system at Sunrise on Jefferson and Sunrise East on Poplar is perfect. First, you order at the counter from the huge menu, chock full of deliciousness. Wait, before you do that, just make sure your entire party is there. Then, get in line. Then, order at the counter from the huge menu of deliciousness. Then, grab a number and head to any table you'd like. I mean, as long as there aren't people already sitting there. Then, before you know it, the best breakfast or lunch you can't find anywhere but Sunrise will arrive, piping hot and fresh. Remember, you can only stay an hour at Sunrise because people refuse to leave.
Now back to Sports 56 Mornings. Good morning on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Here once again, Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy.
Our buddy Ryan texts in, says, "Go to hell, Carolina. Let's go Duke. Can't wait till Saturday."
How would you compare Carolina Duke in that rivalry in basketball compared to Michigan Ohio State in football?
I think it's the best college basketball rivalry there is. I don't know. I've never, I don't think it's a different thing because you play twice a year and it has very little impact really on your postseason chances, unlike a or a Michigan Ohio State game, which can knock a team in or out of the playoff every single year.
Yeah, but they played so many times in the ACC tournament, in the ACC championship game. But there's also the other factor that there's the secondary rivals, NC State, Wake Forest, that whole Tobacco Road deal where there's four of them. Nothing's more important than Carolina to Duke and Duke to Carolina. But yeah, I would say that probably is, while it's the best in basketball, college basketball, I think it pales in comparison to some of those football rivalries led by Michigan, Ohio State. Tonight in the SEC, it's going to be a busy night in the Magnolia State. Alabama at Mississippi State. That's number 4 versus number 14. And at the Pavilion in Oxford, number 23 Ole Miss versus Texas. That game will start at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. We'll have it for you here on Sports 56, 98.5 FM, beginning with the pregame at 7:30. Ole Miss has lost now 3 in a row?
Yeah, they need this one. They've lost 3 in a row. They got Auburn coming in on Saturday. Texas on their home court is a game they need to win. Obviously, Chris Beard going against his former team in Texas. But yeah, this is an important one tonight for Ole Miss to kind of rebound and then get ready for the number 1 team in the country.
And speaking of the number 1 team in the country, Auburn at LSU tonight in SEC play. In the American Conference, last night South Florida rallied to beat Rice at home 69-64. Rice will be the Memphis Tigers' opponent Sunday in Houston. Tonight on tap in the American, you have UTSA at Florida Atlantic, Charlotte at Temple, North Texas at Wichita State, and UAB at Tulsa. Tulsa will be the Tigers' game or opponent, I should say, next Wednesday, 1 week from tonight at FedEx Forum. But before that game, before Sunday's game against Rice, they'll have the game tomorrow night against Tulane as the Tigers and the Green Wave will go at it at 8 o'clock. So a little bit later, it'll be on the Deuce. The Tigers at 16-4 overall, leading the American because of the tiebreak with North Texas, having beaten them. Tulane comes in at 11-9 overall. But Ron Hunter has had success against the Tigers in the past. So that's the next game for the Tigers tomorrow night in New Orleans. It'll be a busy night with the Grizzlies playing at home against the Houston Rockets and the Tigers on the road in New Orleans against Tulane. The Memphis women's basketball team, which has struggled, a lot of it due to injuries. They're back in action tonight as they will host Charlotte over at El Marone Fieldhouse.
The Tigers able to move up one more spot in the net today. They go up to number 40. So
up to 40. Okay. Couple other things before we take our next timeout. Coming up in hour 2, Jerry Palm will join us. We'll get his latest bracketology from CBS Sports, cbssports.com. That'll be at 8:25. Then in our third hour, DeMichael Cole on the Grizzlies at 9:05 and Parth Upadhyay on Tigers basketball at 9:25. From the world of I'm right and Eli's wrong, once again, an ESPN personality is back in the NFL. Chuck Pagano, who has not coached in 4 years, but is a member of the Pat McAfee roster. So he's there. He's prevalent. He's someone that people see all the time. He was hired by John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens. So he's coming out of retirement at the age of 64. He'll be their senior secondary coach. Again, when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. But when you're actually there and people see you and they listen to you talk and they listen to you break down film and they listen to you talk about do's and don'ts for teams, it's easy to go, you know what? Why don't we see if that guy wants to come back to coaching? So Pagano's going to do that. He served as the defensive coordinator with the Ravens back in 2011, so there is that history that he has with the organization. John Harbaugh saying Chuck brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and coaching talent to our team. Also, the Pro Bowl, which the activities begin tonight, they've added some players because of...
Tomorrow night is the games.
I'm sorry, tomorrow night. They've added some players because of the Chiefs and the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl, so none of their players obviously will participate. One of the players added, Drake May of the Patriots. Huh? I know Drake May started to play pretty good ball for his rookie year, but for a good portion of the season, he wasn't even their starting quarterback. It was Jacoby Brissett before he was finally replaced. Do they not have enough quarterbacks? And the AFC is loaded with quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, they've had to replace like 25 guys from the original roster.
What a joke.
I mean, Russell Wilson's on there. So.
Yeah, Russell Wilson was just named. You're right. Speaking of that, what did you think of... we'll talk about this when we come back. Got some NFL news to get to in hour number 2. Also, another big name that could be on the move in the NBA. The trade deadline is 1 week from tomorrow. Things are starting to heat up. This is Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Hi, I'm Chandler Martin. I'm back from the University of Memphis football. Southern Security, their home team credit union, voted best credit union in the Mid-South for 6 consecutive years. Southern Security offers the latest technology with our personal teller machines. Our PTMs allow you to speak in real time with the Southern Security team member through two-way live video. The experience and service you trust and know delivered at your convenience. To locate a PTM near you, visit us online at southernsecurity.org or call 901-452-7900. Southern Security is a proud supporter of the University of Memphis Athletics, federally insured by the NCUA.
You know, sometimes I wish I had a gun.
Well, I'm armed, but before I bought one, I still went to Top Gun Academy to learn to protect myself without a gun.
How is that possible?
Top Gun's personal protection training. It's perfect if you want to protect yourself without firearms.
I don't know.
And it's perfect if you feel the need to carry a gun for self-defense, because the last thing you really want to do is shoot.
That is scary.
Not at Top Gun. It's very comfortable, and you learn to load, handle, and shoot a handgun safely. Protect yourself. Go to Top Gun Academy. They're at 2770 Winton Road.
When disaster strikes, the food supply is the first domino to fall. It can start quietly, an emergency alert, a breaking news headline. But within hours, reality sets in. People rush to grocery stores, emptying shelves of everything from bread to canned goods. Lines stretch out the door, tempers flare, and desperation takes hold. And no matter who's in charge these days, you simply can't rely on the government to bail you out. That's why having an emergency food supply on hand is the right move for you and your family. Right now, you can get $50 off a 4-week emergency food kit at mypatriotsupply.com. They're an American company trusted by millions, offering 2,000 calories per day with essential vitamins and minerals to keep you strong during a crisis. This food will be there for you when you need it, since it lasts up to 25 years and can ship out to you next day. Go to mypatriotsupply.com now to get $50 off your 4-week emergency food kit. That's mypatriotsupply.com.
Mid-South, it's time for a new year and a new ride from Gossett Mitsubishi on the Pike. Get 2024 Mitsubishi Mirage, a perfect compact hatchback for commutes, getaways, and just about everything else for $299 a month. Or buy Mirage for $18,410, gets 43 mpg highway. Or take your pick from 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid PHEV, named 2025 Family Green Car of the Year for 3 straight years. Or 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander, now just $399 a month. Plus, get peace of mind with Mitsubishi's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. Get to Gossett Mitsubishi today to start your year off right. 1870 Covington Pike and 24/7 at MemphisMitsubishi.com.
If you want it, we got it and Gossett Motor Cars.
Military rebate Mirage RHO 15630 MSRP 18410 PHEV RZO 66681 MSRP 42750 Outlander RZO 88655 MSRP 32770 includes all rebates and incentives. PF 695 excludes tax file and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid to end of the month. Dealer stock only.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good morning. It's building pretty good now. Coming in from Fayette County into Shelby County as we check it out live on 40 westbound here at 269. Coming past Canada Road, Chambers Chapel, inbound on I-40. Still moving at the moment, 385 Bill Morris Parkway, but that's going to get heavier the next 10, 15 minutes, especially on Bill Morris from Riverdale all the way to 240. They're coming past Mount Moriah. Hey, if your yard needs some help this time of the year, make sure you call Lawn Solutions. With 30 years experience, call Lawn Solutions today at 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis with John Harden. Weekdays from 11 to 1. Now back to Sports 56 mornings on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by James Gaddis Jewelers. Here once again, Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy.
Moving right along on this Hump Day edition of Sports 56 Mornings. Greg Gaston, Eli Savoy, Elijah Seegers with you. 8:03 the time. Hour number 2 of the program. Officially the Wednesday, January 29th, 2025 edition of the program. 43 degrees currently. It's going to get up to 64 today. Partly cloudy skies this morning. Will become overcast during the afternoon, but a very minimal chance of precip during the day. We'll see a little bit of the sun. And then tonight, rain coming early in the evening and then evolving, I should say, into a more steady rate overnight. Low only at 50. But again, a good chance of a soaking tonight. And then tomorrow, it looks like absolutely a rain day. 66 for your high, only 55 for your low. 81% chance. Could be an all-day rain affair. Friday, 64. Saturday, the high 58, but then 69 on Sunday. And they're calling for 70 degrees on Monday. So the weather looks to be changing for the good. And that's good for all of us. Hour number 2, James Gaddis Jewelers is our sponsor. That's good for all of us as well, because you know what's coming up? It's almost time for Valentine's Day. So gentlemen out there, I get antsy every time. You know, what can I get my wife? What's different? What does she need? What would look good? Look, jewelry's always a hit. It is absolutely always a hit. And at James Gaddis Jewelers, man, do they have variety. They have variety. They have the biggest selection. By the way, if you're looking to get engaged this year, the biggest selection of engagement rings in the Mid-South and the best prices on GIA certified diamonds to fit any budget. But again, maybe you're just looking for that special Valentine's Day gift for your wife. It makes sense to shop at James Gaddis Jewelers. Everything from watches to necklaces, earrings, bracelets, pendants. They have one of a kind estate and vintage jewelry. Layaway is always available at James Gaddis Jewelers. And they have the experts to help you pick out that right gift. So whether it's getting an engagement ring or whether it's getting a beautiful gift for your wife, your girlfriend, for a loved one in your family for Valentine's Day, it makes sense to go visit James and the great folks at James Gaddis Jewelers. They are your family's jeweler, 4900 Poplar between Mendenhall and St. Nick, on the web at GaddisJewelers.com. James Gaddis Jewelers, second hour sponsor of Sports 56 Mornings. So what I was going to ask you before we ran out of time in hour one was the Steelers. You mentioned Russell Wilson was added to the Pro Bowl game. Rooney, and I forget which Rooney we're up to now, Art Rooney, the eighth. No, I think it might be the third. Anyway, Art Rooney and the Rooney family that owns the Steelers came out and said that basically one of those two quarterbacks that they had this year should be the quarterback. And, I'm paraphrasing here, but that either Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, whatever direction Mike Tomlin wants to go in, and they put all stock in Tomlin. These are Tomlin's decisions. This isn't a Jerry Jones situation with the Rooney family. But they want to win just as much as Jones and any owner out there, but they think they can win with one of those two quarterbacks. And I've heard it debated on Fox National Radio, the show that I listen to driving into work every morning with Brady Quinn and LeVar Arrington. They're debating that as well. And it's interesting because one says it should be Fields, one says they should run it back with Russell Wilson. I'll be curious to see what Pittsburgh ends up doing. I don't think it's going to be a draft. I don't think they're going to be drafting a quarterback. Maybe they'll draft a quarterback later in the draft and take a shot with somebody, but it's probably going to be one of those two guys. What do you think they should do?
Well, I would be going with Justin Fields, but I just don't think Russell Wilson is. I don't think Russell Wilson should have been this year. I just think Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson.
Early on, obviously, Wilson was hurt. They went with Fields, and they had some success. In fact, how many times was Mike Tomlin asked in a press conference whether or not he was going to name Fields as his permanent starter, and he delayed every single time. He hesitated because he knew in his mind that Wilson was going to eventually come back and Wilson was going to be the guy. And then Wilson did a damn good job. So we saw some positives from Fields. We saw some positives from Wilson.
Wilson had a better year than I thought he would. When he first came back, he had some success. But I just think that Fields. I still think Fields is a starting quarterback in the NFL. To me, and I think should be given that opportunity. And if it's making a decision between him and Russell Wilson, to me, I'm Justin Fields for sure.
So yesterday we talked about Brian Schottenheimer and the decision by Jerry Jones to elevate him to head coach, and he had his presser. Also news from Dallas Cowboys land that they are going with former Bears head coach Matt Eberflus as their defensive coordinator. What say you? You happy?
I'm fine with it. He's a good defensive coach, or has been a good defensive coach. They know him in Dallas. He was there years ago on their staff. So, I certainly don't want him to be the head coach, but yeah, I think he's a pretty good defensive coach.
So the Senior Bowl we know is going on this week. And the game will be played. Is it Saturday? I think tonight, or what's today? Wednesday. Tomorrow, I think it is the Shrine game with Mario Anderson from the University of Memphis. But Seth Hennigan, one of the quarterbacks, performing this week in front of a lot of NFL personnel, and of course the coaches are NFL connected, and just a really good way to get the exposure that you need. And who knows if Hennigan will be invited to the combine? I wouldn't think so, but maybe. With a good week this week, maybe he gets that combine invitation. And so far, he's looked pretty good. I've read some of the observations from different personnel that are there, some media members that are there, and they think he's done really, really well. I think the one quarterback that has stood out from what I've read is Jackson Dart. I didn't even know he was playing in the Senior Bowl, but Jackson Dart is the former Ole Miss Rebel. But Dart, Hennigan has looked good. Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. They also have Jalen Milroe, who's just a physical specimen with a lethal arm. But again, his decision-making in question sometimes, playing the game of football. Obviously, he can beat you with his legs as well, but he is just a monster. Tyler Shaw is there. Riley Leonard is there as well. And then there's another quarterback. I got to be honest with you, I've never heard of him. Taylor Ogursma? Either of you guys?
No.
I don't know who he is. Maybe he's from a... Can you... At the Senior Bowl, can you have quarterbacks from 1AA? Can you look up his... maybe... It's Elgersma. And who he plays for. I've never heard of the guy, but he's another quarterback that is there. So you're not going to get a lot of reps in the game because there's so many quarterbacks, right? Now, obviously, there's 2 teams worth, but you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 quarterbacks. But that's why practices are so important to showcase what you have, what you can bring to the table.
He's from Wilfred. Wilfrid Laurier University.
The hell is that?
In Canada.
Oh, he's a Canadian. So we know you don't like him.
He's the winner of the Heck Creighton Trophy, the Canadian equivalent of the Heisman Trophy.
Wow. Who knew? The Heck Creighton?
He threw for over 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
I'm sure the caliber of competition was just really stiff up there.
He is the first Canadian quarterback to play at a program in Canada to be invited to the Senior Bowl.
So there you go. Good for him. So he's there. He's part of the Senior Bowl. But again, Jackson Dart, turning heads right now, seems to be, and this is not everybody's opinion, but of the opinions that I've read, the top quarterback so far. But Seth Hennigan right up there with him. So that's pretty impressive. All right, from the NBA. Yesterday, there was a lot of news about De'Aaron Fox and the Sacramento Kings, and that the Kings, according to reports, are expected to open up talks for a potential trade. Now, there was also the rumor out there, speculation, that Fox already knows his preferred destination as far as eventually where he'll play as a free agent, I assume, if he's not traded to this team, and that's San Antonio. So I don't know how they have that information and why San Antonio, but it makes sense to maybe hitch your wagon to a guy named Victor Wembanyama. But for Sacramento and a team that has good young players like Domantas Sabonis and Keegan Murray, it's unfortunate that there's issues at the top. They had the Mike Brown firing. Capable team, talented team, but it's just not worked out. And it looks like De'Aaron Fox could be dealt. We know there's the whole Jimmy Butler dilemma that's going on. Other names being thrown around. It seems like for a lot of the so-called experts that cover the NBA, that the Butler trade, which is inevitable in their minds, will open up the floodgates for other moves to be made. But we'll see if anybody pulls the trigger before a potential Jimmy Butler trade. But that, again, they think Butler and that trade ignites other things to happen.
Yeah, I would be surprised if De'Aaron Fox is traded in season. I would guess that's probably more of an off-season move, but maybe they get something done now.
You never know.
I would assume this is more starting of the conversations, and then because it's not like De'Aaron Fox is a Jimmy Butler situation where he's like, get me the hell out of town right now. So, and they've played pretty well since the Brown firing, and so they can play out the rest of this season with him and then make that move when it's a little easier to make a move in the offseason. But we'll see. Maybe somehow, maybe somebody decides to make an offer for them that they can't refuse and get a deal done here in the next week before the deadline.
On the Butler front, more teams have surfaced, according to reports, including Golden State, which right now is not even in the play-in. They're a game behind Sacramento for that 10th spot. The Warriors have dealt with injuries. Steph Curry missed the game yesterday, but Kuminga's been hurt recently, and Draymond Green's been out. But Golden State's name has popped up for a possible Jimmy Butler move. Also, you have Indiana's name that has been out there. The Grizzlies, many teams. The Suns certainly prevalent as far as that conversation is concerned. And then who was the other one yesterday? The Warriors. I'm trying to remember who else's name came up. Oh, the Sixers, who once had Jimmy Butler, which would be really interesting. Right now they have their own issues with Embiid, and he can't stay on the court, and Paul George is now hurt again. But, yeah, the Sixers' name had surfaced. The Nuggets, according to reports, and the Trailblazers have engaged in trade talks centered on Robert Williams. They'd like to get another big to help out Jokic, to give him more physicality. Right now, Denver, they're lurking. They're just 2.5 games behind the Grizzlies for third place in the West. I don't think you're real high on Denver, are you?
I think they're good. I just thought before the year said that they would take a step back because of what they lost with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and the lack of depth that they have, and I think they've taken a step back. They still got the Jokic, who's unbelievably good, and you got Jamal Murray, who's good, but the lack of depth that they have, it's not easy for them to make trades because they don't have any assets really to make trades. So while they're good, I don't know that they're NBA title good.
Then there's New Orleans. Will they do anything with Zion Williamson? They have pieces that probably can be gettable for teams if they're interested in doing anything. Who will be the teams looking to add pieces here before the trade deadline, again, which is coming up on February 6th? I would think that there's going to be a lot of action and activity in the West. I think the Lakers could be involved, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Suns. Who knows what the Mavericks will do? They need Luka back, more importantly than any kind of deal. The Kings we just talked about, maybe, maybe not. The Warriors will be active. We'll see if the Spurs add anybody. Most teams, and again, the big question is, will the Grizzlies do anything? Which right now, again, just to me, seems like they probably won't. I wouldn't be surprised with a small move. I would be surprised with a big move, a big blockbuster trade. And again, it's not all dependent on what they do the rest of these games leading up to February 6th, which is next week. But as we talked about in hour one, I want to see what they do in response to that debacle in New York when they play tomorrow night against the Rockets. The question about the Grizzlies is, obviously being healthy is the question for every team out there. But do they get punked when they play more physical teams? And can they add some physicality? So I don't know. We'll see.
A lot of those teams in the West that would like to make moves don't really have much ability to make moves.
They're hamstrung?
Where the Grizzlies certainly can make moves. There's teams like a team like San Antonio, I wonder what their thought process is, if they're probably just more willing to kind of play out this year with what it is and then look more in the offseason and start thinking about next year. But if they decided to maybe they wanted to try and make a little bit of a run and get into the postseason this year, that's a team that certainly could do some things. But when you look at the Warriors and the Lakers and the Suns and some of these teams, they just don't have Denver assets to trade. They don't have the cap space. All of these things make it a little more difficult for them to try and make moves than what a team like the Grizzlies, who has all these draft picks, young players, stuff like that you can move in order to try and improve themselves.
When we come back, Jerry Palm will join us. We'll get his latest bracketology. I forgot to bring this up when we were talking about the college basketball night last night around the country. Were you talking about obscure things? Sometimes I was at a Grizzlies game one time before the game, and I was introduced to Cliff Richard. Do you remember Cliff Richard? English singer, songwriter, many hits over the years. He's passed away, but what is this guy at a Grizzlies game for? I was a big fan of some of his songs and all that, but it makes sense. He was actually recording, I think, on Beale Street. They were recording a live album in Memphis. So, okay, that's why he's at the Grizzlies game. But this proper Englishman, what is he doing at the Grizzlies game? Last night, Baylor and BYU in Provo. Who's at the game? Conor McGregor. Huh? Conor McGregor is at the game. Not a impersonator. I mean, here he is. Conor McGregor sitting there and then trying to get the students fired up for the game and all that. And BYU won. Baylor came back on a BYU. But you're talking about obscure things. It's not obscure when you go to a Knicks game and there's Chris Rock and there's Adam Sandler and Spike Lee and things or you go to L.A. for all those years and Jack Nicholson's there. But you go to a BYU game, basketball, and Conor McGregor is there. That's just obscure as hell, isn't it?
I don't know.
Maybe he's a Mormon.
No idea. Don't know much about Conor McGregor, and certainly don't know any reason why he would be at a BYU game.
The fighting Mormons. It makes sense.
East Coast Wings and Grill, folks, for great food, great place to go watch games. East Coast Wings provides that for you. Of course, the wings are the highlight, and they've got 60 flavors to choose from, so whatever it is that you like, they've got probably a flavor for you, plus 7 different heat indexes as well, so no matter how hot you want them, they can take care of that as well, plus many, many other great food items on that menu, whether it be for lunch or for dinner. Beyond the Wings with the great burgers and sandwiches, flatbreads, all kinds of great things to choose from over at East Coast beyond those great wings. Plus, 24 draft beers on tap, any other beer, any other drinks that you need. They've got happy hour from 3:30 until 6:30 Monday through Friday, 2 for 1 on the draft beers and other specials as well. They've got the rewards program. You can get ask for a rewards card. Then you can earn rewards on the money you spend at East Coast Wings and Grill. Of course, with the big game coming up, they'll have plenty of opportunity for you to go watch it there, but maybe you're going to watch it at home and want to have some of those great wings for your party. Well, talk to the folks at East Coast Wings and Grill. Get those orders in early, and they'll be ready for you to take care of your party needs when it comes to the wings or any other of that great fruit. East Coast Wings, located in Bartlett, Wolf Chase area, right there between the Walmart and Lowe's in Wolf Chase off of Highway 64. Kate Hyde Boulevard is the street that runs right between Lowe's and Walmart, and that's where you will find East Coast Wings and Grill.
Where is Memphis in the field? According to bracketologist Jerry Palm, we'll find out from the horse's mouth when he joins us next. This is Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
We are Real Sports Talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Sports 56 and 95 FM.
Shop, compare, and save from hundreds of experts to turn your dream home into a reality. We have everything to help you remodel, refresh, and beautify your home inside and out. So come on out to the home show of the Mid-South, January 31st through February 2nd at the Amber Center. You'll find special show pricing on kitchens, baths, patios, and landscaping, flooring, cabinets, windows, roofing. It's all at the home show of the Mid-South, January 31st through February 2nd at the Amber Center. Visit MemphisHomeShow.com. That's MemphisHomeShow.com.
$650 acquisition fee, 20,000 miles per year, 20 cents excess mileage, EV6, 36-month lease, RU6 21,425, 36-month lease, MSRP 55,820, K4 SEO 64,461, MSRP 24,715, Telluride SG 596,204, MSRP 41,060, includes all rebates and incentives, must finance through KFA, excludes tax out of license with approved credit, dealer stock only, see dealer for complete details, offer valid through 1/31/24.
I got Jeff Allen on the line. He's doing numbers I've never heard of before at Gossen Kia South on Mount Moriah.
Randy, when's the last time you heard of a new ride at $163 a month with electric EPA range of estimate 310? I got it in a 2024 Kia EV6, $63.96 due at signing, 36-month lease. Or a 2025 K4 GT Line, $206 a month, $34.99 due at signing, 24-month lease. 2025 Telluride S front-wheel drive, $398 per month, $39.99 due at signing, 24-month lease.
And every Gossett Kia comes with Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
So whether you live in Horn Lake, South Haven, Olive Branch, or Memphis, you'll be happy at Gossett Kia on Mount Moriah.
This ain't the little itty-bitty teeny-tiny bowl, it's the Super Bowl. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It's quick, 90 seconds. Use the code HERD, my last name, H-E-R-D. Are you ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook's app. Make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, and the code is HERD, H-E-R-D, for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
They're finally gone. The holidays are over and your relatives have finally gone back to where they live, and you're free to live the way you want to live. Visiting Bell Tavern, Memphis' perfect downtown neighborhood bar, as often as possible. We both know that during the holidays, you hauled your out-of-towners to Bell Tavern, and they had a great time. Couldn't stop talking about Bell Tavern. But now, you can be at Bell Tavern without having to tiptoe around politics, because no one at Bell Tavern has any interest in talking about politics. Leave politics outside of the bar. And your relatives.
Bonus Rebel Young is back. The Rebel Young online radio show is back on WHBQ Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Every Monday night at 6, hear the latest news on your Ole Miss Rebels with Nancy Porter with 24/7 Sports. Your Ole Miss defensive captain Mike Fitzsimmons, Gordon Ford covering SEC sports ball, and former Ole Miss baseball announcer Gary Garvey from kickoff first through to extra innings. Your Ole Miss Sports on the Rebel Young Hotline Show right here Monday night at 6 on Sports 56 live 60 a.m. and 98.5 FM. Your Mid-South Sports Station. Sports 56 traffic.
Good morning. It's finally starting to build with a little bit more volume on 385 Bill Morris Parkway as you pass Riverdale, headed on to 240 as it gets heavier over here on 40 West from Germantown Parkway. Working your way up to Sycamore View Road. Some of that traffic coming off I-40 there onto Sam Cooper coming inbound. It's been running slow the last couple of days going outbound on Sam Cooper because of that construction zone over there just before Highland. Give yourself extra time through there throughout the day. Hey, if your lawn needs a little help this time of the year, the solution is Lawn Solutions. Over 30 years experience. Call Lawn Solutions at 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Now back to Sports 56 mornings on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by James Gaddis Jewelers. Diamonds are forever. Here once again, Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy.
Welcome back, everybody. 8:29 is the time on this Wednesday, this Hump Day Wednesday. Beautiful weather for January, to be honest with you. We're talking about temperatures into the 60s. Monday, we're talking 70. We will get some rain later tonight, overnight hours, and then all day tomorrow, but I guess we need it. Other than that, the temps are going to make it feel a lot better than what it probably should be for January. It is Wednesday. That means it's time to talk to Jerry Palm.
It's time for Sports 56 Mornings Weekly Chat with Jerry Palm, college football and basketball writer and bracketologist for CBSSports.com. Here are Greg, Eli, and Jerry.
He is Jerry Palm, CBS Sports, CBSSports.com. You can follow him on Twitter at JPPalmCBS. Listen to him each and every week throughout the college basketball and football seasons right here on Sports 56 Mornings. How are you, JP?
All right, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Now is the time where the bracketologists are sought after by every red-blooded American that cares about college basketball, and you are right there at the top. And I see that this week you have elevated the University of Memphis Tigers. You dropped them last week a couple of spots. They went down to 6. Now you got them at number 5. They had a good week, beat Wichita State, didn't look good in doing so, but then they looked great in that win over UAB.
Yeah, and there were a pile of teams ahead of Memphis that were beating each other up or taking losses. Actually, I think 9 to 14. Mm-hmm. Those 6 teams, 5 of them lost, so that always helps. But yeah, it's so Memphis is back up to a 5. The Memphis's problem is what it almost annually is now is that that their schedule the rest of the way just doesn't help them any. So. They have to keep winning to maintain or maybe creep up a little, but every loss is going to hurt more than any win or even collection of wins.
Oh, there's no question. Every loss is damaging. But let's just, for the fun of it, that's what we do with you. We like to have fun, a little speculation, and obviously we don't know what all the other teams are going to do. But
right.
Let's say Memphis, and I don't think they'll do this, but let's say they ran the table and won the conference tournament championship, got the AQ. What do you think max would be for them? Could they get to a 3, or do you think maybe it's 4?
No, I think they can probably get to a 3. I mean, it really, as always, depends on what other teams do. But those teams, the other teams, the top 16, right now is 7 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, a couple Big East teams, or 1 Big East team, and some Big 12 teams. So it's all dominated by one conference, or 3 conferences really, but and they're all going to play each other. Oh, there's an ACC team in there, of course, too. Yeah. So as these teams beat each other up, it's going to open the door for somebody to move up, and Memphis would certainly be one of those teams on the list that's capable of moving up at least to a 4, if not a 3.
How is this year's bubble kind of shaping up compared to the last few years' bubble?
Yeah, it's actually kind of premature to ask that question. Not too much, but the bubble is generally the same every year. The difference might be, which teams are on it. Like this year's bubble might be more major conference oriented than it has been in the past. But I'm not actually going to start doing bubble watch until a week from Monday, which is 6 weeks before Selection Sunday is about the time I normally do it. So I don't really think of a bubble. For me, it's still a little too early.
We haven't had the net for that long. Do you by chance know what the record is for most quad 1 wins in the net?
I don't off the top of my head. I could probably find it and get it to you later, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Because it feels like Auburn's going to have a really good chance of breaking it. I mean, they've got 11 already, and basically every game they play is a quad 1 game.
Yeah, and teams could still move around, but yeah, you're right. I mean, Auburn is putting up, because of the strength of this league and the fact that they've been the best team in that league, has a chance to put up just a gaudy number of quad 1 wins. It's pretty remarkable. Some of those teams, as this league beats each other up, may slide out of there, especially some of Auburn's home wins.
Yeah,
because that standard is higher for being in quad 1, but. They're going to have a pretty insane number at the end of the year, barring a complete, turnaround of fortune.
Yeah, because I think, maybe like a South Carolina, but any road game pretty much in the SEC is quad 1. But some of those home games, I guess, could slide out of there.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be. There'll be some fluctuation. There always is. For example, up until Saturday, Houston did not have a quad one win. Not the entire season.
Right.
They were in the top 5 of the net, and without a quad one win. And then they go and they beat Kansas at Kansas, which is the best you can do in that league, really, except maybe win at Iowa State in terms of getting a quad one win. But then they ended up with 2 because UCF won and moved back into quad one. Their road win over UCF moved back into quad one territory. So I actually picked up 2 quad one wins, and one of them from an opponent they had previously played that moved up. So that kind of fluctuation happens all season long.
Okay, and it was a miracle win that they got over Kansas, a win they should have never gotten.
Oh yeah, I watched both overtimes of that game. Yeah, it was, and the regulation too. Yeah, it was quite a comeback there at the end for Houston. Kansas definitely should not have lost that game.
Okay, so why did, before this all happened, why was Houston that high in the net without a quad one win? Because they were beating teams by 20 and 30 points? What?
Yeah, they had a good record, but you have to understand that the net and, Ken Pom, I think Torvik as well, but certainly the net and Ken Pom are basically Ken Pom is designed to predict margin of victory. Okay? So, scoring margin is going to have an enormous impact on his rankings, and you can do some, sophisticated math, with, basically scoring margins and other, like possessions and things like that, which he does. The NCAA, after having been told by Ken Pomeroy not to use his rankings because they're not measuring what they're trying to reward, went out and tried to create his rankings without actually having his formula. And so what they have is something where the rankings, they don't have raw numbers for the net, which would be a better comparison. But the rankings for these teams correlate to almost 0.99 on a scale of 0 to 1. So that's about as close as you can get to his rankings without actually having his formula.
Right.
So those are heavily influenced by margin. And Victor actually wrote about this a little bit this week. I throw it into something like this into every third column, but the one for the bracket on Monday, I talked a little bit more about how, Houston is where they are because they're the number 1 team in average scoring margin. Mm-hmm. That's why they're third in the net without a high quality win. And they only have like 3 losses, right? And they don't have any bad losses either.
Yeah, that's all the losses are quad one losses. They don't have any losses outside of quad
exactly. One. So but it's not their strength of schedule or the quality of their wins so much as it is they just beat the snot out of everybody. Their average scoring margin was something like 21. They're number 1 in average scoring margin. But I also mentioned some other teams that are higher up in the net that are way down in the bracket, like Maryland, for example. And Maryland, Gonzaga, I forget the other one off the top of my head, we're all top 10 teams in the net. They're top 10 teams, in average scoring margin, not in the net. But they're high in the net, and yet middle of the bracket or lower teams. And that's pretty much it. If you see a net ranking that doesn't make sense, find a ranking of average scoring margin, and then it'll make sense.
So you can conceivably, let's say Houston plays 3 games against quadrant 2 opponents. Mm-hmm. They beat the snot out of all 3. Mm-hmm. Maryland plays 3 quad 1 opponents, beats all 3 of them, but not beats the snot out of them. Houston's going to be a bit higher in the net than Maryland.
Conceivably, yes. Conceivably, that could be a more positive event for Houston than it is for Maryland. Although I wouldn't say for sure that's the case, but yeah, that's certainly a thing. So the best example really this year is Kansas went to UCF and beat them by 51. 51.
Okay.
Okay, it's 1 loss. It's a quad 1 loss.
It's 1 loss, it's 1 win. Right.
Right, it's 1 loss and it's 1 win. UCF dropped 24 spots in the net from 63 to 87 based on 1 loss to Kansas. But it wasn't the loss to Kansas. It was the loss by 51 to Kansas. They lost to Iowa State by 25.
Right.
So those losses, just because of the margin, but especially the Kansas one.
I thought in college sports we were supposed to have a little more like decency where margin of victory wasn't a part of it, so teams couldn't run up scores. I know in football that was always the case. I thought that was always the case in basketball too, but I guess that doesn't matter. That's out the
I don't know that Kansas was actively running up the score. I didn't watch the game. I mean, their subs could have added 10 points to the lead, right?
Well, they could have, but conceivably, if you're going to get a better net and the committee is using the net rankings and using these to make your selections of where you're going to be seated, then you need to go out there, play starters more minutes, and try to clobber teams by 30, 40 points instead of just win, which would, with the the main purpose of the game is to get the dub. Now you have to get the dub by 30.
Yeah, well, yes and no. So, and by the way, Kansas moved up from 20 to 10 from that one game.
Jeez.
But the committee's selection and seeding process is not margin of victory concern. It's just they look at results. They're looking at quad one wins. They're looking at, all of that kind of stuff that they've always looked at.
Okay.
And they don't really look at how badly you beat somebody when they're evaluating teams. They're looking at who did you beat, where'd you play them, who beat you, that kind of thing.
But aren't they looking at the net rankings?
The net rankings put teams into quadrants. That's the only purpose that serves for the committee. So they're not really making decisions based on net rankings.
Okay.
But the net rankings is what puts teams into quadrants. That is your opponent's net rankings are more important than your own. So they're not sitting there comparing computer metrics of teams because that's not what they're being used for. Now, I'm not going to say that they get completely ignored, but they're certainly not using the net one individual ranking. They've got like 6 of them, including the net on their team sheet. And, there are a couple of them that don't consider margin of victory at all. So they have 2 different flavors, at least, categories of rankings on their team sheets. I'm not going to say that those don't mean absolutely, or that they mean absolutely nothing, but those are probably not really coming into play unless the rest of the resumes, when they're making comparisons, don't have something that stands out in some meaningful way.
Okay.
And even then, you'd have to see something that's a significant difference. Because if one team is 39 and another one's 43, you haven't learned anything here. That's not a significant difference. If one team's 10 spots ahead, or something like that, okay, maybe. But if you're just a couple spots apart, that's basically a tie.
On Houston, if I just counted this correctly, of their 16 wins, 9 of them are by 28 or more.
Yeah.
So they destroy teams. They do not.
They do.
They do not mess around because most teams can't score 40 points against them. That's the biggest problem.
And they don't get killed. They don't when they lose. They're not getting killed.
Right.
Yeah.
But
they've lost by 5. Their 3 losses are by a combined 13 points.
Right.
2 5-point losses and a 3-point loss. When do we get the committee's top 16? When do they do that deal?
It's usually 4 weeks before Selection Sunday, and that's also the week after the Super Bowl. So a couple weeks.
All right, couple of other things, JP. Tennessee is a 2 in your latest bracket. They lose at home last night to Kentucky. They have Florida coming up. If they lose, that's at home, right, Eli? That's Thompson Bowling?
Florida game, yes.
Okay, if they lose back-to-back this week, albeit to really good opponents, Kentucky and Florida, at home, how much do you think they'll drop?
Oh, probably not too far, but I would assume off the 2 line. And of course, that always depends on what other teams do. But, they may fall behind Kentucky if they lose both those games. They're already behind Florida for me. So
yeah, I think there'd be some damage, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you lose, and, you look at a bracket, and the team doesn't move, but they could be moving within the line on the bracket, and you just don't see it because they haven't dropped all the way off a line.
Where are they amongst the 2 seeds? Where did you have them in your overall?
I have them 6 overall.
6, okay. So Florida was 5, Tennessee 6.
Yep. So 4 of the top 6 SEC.
You have
at the moment
Ole Miss as a 6. They've lost 3 straight games now. You have Oklahoma as a 7. They lost again last night at Texas A&M. Georgia's an 8, but they did win last night. Who is in the most precarious, if they are in any precarious situation, from the SEC teams that you have in right now that could find themselves out when it's all said and done?
Well, I have Texas as an 11.
Okay.
So, that might
that
might be a play-in game. They're in a play. I have them in a play-in game.
Oh, you do? I didn't even see it. Yep, you got them playing Wake Forest.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I got a 9 also. I think a 9 seed. Oh no, Vanderbilt's an 8. So those are probably the ones that are, they're the ones I have closest to the bottom from the SEC. And I think they might be the only ones I actually have in the bottom half of the bracket.
Okay.
Because Georgia is also a 9. So Georgia.
You got Georgia as an 8.
I had to switch them for bracketing purposes. They're actually they're 33, so they're actually the top 9. But I had to switch them.
Gotcha. It looks strange though when you look at this and you see North Carolina 11 playing in Dayton.
Lost last night to Pitt.
Yeah, so they could be in deep trouble. Gonzaga's a 9.
Have you seen their schedule?
No, I haven't looked at it.
So North Carolina's upcoming schedule, starts with a home and home with Pitt, sandwiched around a game at Duke, followed by at Clemson, and then at Syracuse. They're playing 4 out of 5 on the road. The first 4 of those against teams in the bracket.
So this is going to determine basically if they're in the NCAA tournament or not.
Yeah, these next 2 weeks are going to have a lot to say about whether or not North Carolina can put together a tournament quality resume. Yeah,
because
sure.
After that, then there's not much until the Duke game at the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they have Clemson again, but
no, they don't. Because they
so that's really then the only game left where they can really help themselves. They can hurt themselves. The ACC isn't deep this year, but Wake Forest is also one of those teams hanging around the bottom of the bracket. So if they've got Wake Forest left, that could be a team that they're competing with for a spot in the field.
The best team they have after that Clemson game, you're talking about the best game they have remaining other than the Duke game is Florida State.
Yeah, okay, so they've got to win all those other games, and they probably won't because that's not what they've been doing.
Jeez.
Although, to be fair, they don't have a bad loss yet. They just have a difficult schedule that they haven't measured up to at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, so they have beaten the kinds of teams that are between Clemson and Duke, the second Duke game. But they don't have a choice. If they don't make some damage here in these next few games, then they really have to make a strong run to give themselves a chance to get in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, some big names, not exactly teetering, but you got Gonzaga's a 9, UConn's a 9 now, as we just mentioned, North Carolina 11. Hey, for our friends listening that are from Jonesboro, Arkansas State fans, you have Arkansas State in as the Sun Belt champions and a 13 seed, which is not too bad. They're actually a pretty good team that has that win over Memphis. So. Arkansas. Obviously, they're going to have to win the Sun Belt. They're not going to get it that large, but not too bad with Arkansas State.
That's the kind of a win that gets you a better seed.
Right.
It's not good enough to get them in. They also lost at Alabama by only 9. So that'll be viewed as a good performance, not a win, obviously, but a good performance. So, they have to finish the job. They definitely have to win their league. But if they can do that, they'll be one of the higher seeded teams because of the strength of the win over Memphis, assuming Memphis doesn't, go in the tank like they did last year. But they look stronger for sure. And then the performance against Alabama will get somebody's attention.
We'll help them. Yeah.
Are there any mid majors anywhere near at large consideration?
Besides the ones I have in the bracket, not really. It's, I keep thinking Dayton would have a shot.
Oh, they got killed last night by St.
They
Bonaventure.
got killed last night, and they already had 2 bad losses, but they beat Marquette and UConn. So if you look at the teams that are potential, at large, like a team that wins their, the A-10 or, something else and loses their conference championship game, other than Memphis, none of these other leagues have got a team where the regular season champion looks to be strong enough to get consideration for an at-large.
Not even
And
St.
so-
Mary's or Gonzaga?
Well, St. Mary's and Gonzaga, I mean, they're probably both going anyway. And then there's a couple of teams in the, Utah State in the Mountain West looks like the best of that league. And then New Mexico and San Diego State are fighting for spots. So both of those look like multi-bid leagues anyway. So,
But like a team, like UC Irvine's top 50 in the net, but they're nowhere.
But they haven't got a win. They haven't got the schedule or wins to. It's good enough to get them where they are, but they don't have the kind of juice to take a bad loss in their conference tournament and then still stay in the bracket.
But they have a cool nickname.
The Anteaters?
Yeah, that's a cool nickname. Anyway, the Aardvark would differ. It would beg to differ. He is Jerry Palm, CBS Sports, CBSSports.com. Again, check out his latest bracketology and all his great columns. You can follow him on Twitter at JPPalmCBS and listen to him every single Wednesday during both the college basketball and football seasons right here on Sports 56 Mornings. Great stuff, JP. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it. Always love having JP on. Love talking about All-Star Chevrolet and Olive Branch because the best thing about a new year is getting something new to drive, and you can get it, I should say, because the variety is second to none at All-Star Chevrolet and Olive Branch. They have all the Silverados. The new 2025s get $1,500 in extra savings when you trade in a 2011 or newer passenger car or light-duty truck. 1.9 financing on new Blazers, 2.9 with no payments for 90 days on a new Equinox. Yes, you can get payment-free, or you can be payment-free until April because your good credit deserves it. If you work in law enforcement, first responder, healthcare, military, you're a teacher, a recent graduate, you get another $500 off. So that's in addition. So let's go. Nobody has the certified in the pre-owns like All-Star Chevrolet. Everything from pre-owned Silverados, Sierra trucks, Nissans, Toyotas, Fords, Jeeps. They even got a beautiful red Corvette Stingray. If you've got any vehicle you want to sell, bring it to All-Star Chevrolet in Olive Branch and get the most money for it today. So together, let's drive to the All-Star Chevy's Fresh Start Sale. It's going on now in Olive Branch or online at allstarautogroup.com. You're tuned in to Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right and naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about everything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys, beyond the bottle, Tito's has gained a reputation for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits around the world to serve its community and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's and learn more at Tito'sVodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, mainly 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Exercise. The exercise coach is ready for you. Strength training only takes 20 minutes twice a week with special computerized exercise equipment designed to maximize your workouts and minimize your time. The exercise coach gives you personal workouts by only one-on-one with a trainer. Check out the exercise coach at exercisecoach.com/Lakeland or exercisecoach.com/Lakeland. Injury or knowledge.
Napa Cafe celebrates 26 years in 2024. Hi, I'm Glenda Hastings, owner of Napa Cafe, and I want to thank you for making us part of your dining experiences. Treat yourself tonight with a delightful dinner. Maybe start with an appetizer like our baked sweet peculiar peppers stuffed with goat cheese and mozzarella, finished with basil pistou, and move on to one of our cozy dishes like the double chocolate stout braised boneless beef short ribs with tonkatsu sauce and creamy mashed potatoes, or a fresh seafood dish like our pan-roasted ginger buttered sea bass with cilantro soy vinaigrette. I get hungry just talking about it. Don't forget about dessert, our famous sweet buttermilk pie with brown sugar sauce, or drink your dessert with one of our signature dessert cocktails, like the lemon cheesecake martini, lemony, icy, frothy, and dusted with graham cracker crumbs. Napa Cafe, open Wednesday through Saturday for dinner starting at 5 o'clock. For reservations, visit our website at napacafe.com. Come join us as we celebrate 26 years of Napa Cafe. We can't wait to serve you.
Now, Now back to Sports 56 mornings on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by James Gaddis Jewelers.
Don't you just love it?
Here once again, Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy.
From the I am not surprised by this news category, Michigan is refuting the alleged NCAA violations in the Connor Stallions-led sign-stealing scheme. They're saying, no, we have nothing to do with that. The texts that were deleted by Sharon Moore has nothing to do with anything, and we don't expect to be penalized by this. But the question is, will they be? Will Michigan? I mean, certainly there's something coming down the road, right?
I have no idea.
You figure they're going to refute it. I don't know what they have as far as proof. Maybe they have some stuff. I would hate to see that because it was under Harbaugh's leadership. And then you have the possibility of a penalty coming down the road for Michigan. Maybe or maybe not. Speaking of Harbaugh, I saw this on Twitter yesterday. I laughed. Somebody posted the clip. I guess this was probably in response to this news, right? The Stallions news. They posted a clip of Jim Harbaugh when he was the coach of the 49ers. And the quote is, this is him saying it from the horse's mouth. If you cheat to win, then you have already lost. Okay? Again, this was when he was with the Niners. Brett Bielema jumps on this on social media. He says, really? Why did you leave? Question mark. Was looking forward to playing, but understand why you ran to the NFL. See you in the future and can't wait. Bielema's like that trouble. He was that dude, I bet you, when he was like 9 years old, 10 years old, was a bully. The kid on the playground just bullied everybody. I guarantee. But he makes me laugh, Bielema.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. I bet you he was big as a kid, and I bet you bullied people. The whole Shane Beamer thing, which was laughable, and now just responding to a clip that was posted from Harbaugh from years ago.
Harbaugh deserves to be called out.
Really? Why did you leave? Basically, he says he's running to the NFL because he knew that the penalties were coming around the corner for Michigan. And Sharon Moore is going to be the guy who's going to take the brunt of it. But again, he was allegedly involved with these texts, and the texts were deleted. So I don't know. I don't have all the information, but I would imagine that there will be some kind of penalty that will be levied against Michigan.
We shall see. Who knows? It's the NCAA.
Yeah, because they can't win any legal cases, so they do this, right? They try to get show that they're still somehow powerful, but you know, we know different, especially when it comes to any kind of lawsuit, because they don't win any of them. They just don't win. You win at Corky's. If you're looking for delicious slow-smoked barbecue, you're a winner every single time you go. Whether it's lunch, whether it's dinner. You could also have Corky's cater any event you have coming up, no matter how small, no matter how large. They've been catering for 4 decades. That's how long they've been in existence. And they can start you out as low as $7.99 per person. When you head over for lunch today or for dinner, they have all kinds of great deals. Lunch specials every single day. Party packs, by the way, that start at just $7.49. Pick up a party pack for a little get-together when you're watching the big game or any other sporting event. But for lunch or for dinner, when you get your entree, you add a third of a rack of ribs for just $7.99. You can't beat that price. 4 locations: Poplar Avenue in Memphis, Poplar Avenue in Collierville, Germantown Parkway in Cordova, and Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Ask about their private party room at the Cordova and the Olive Branch locations for any event you got coming up. Whether it's a family reunion, a birthday party celebration, anniversary celebration, think Corky's. Corky's Ribs and Barbecue, open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. Coming up next, we open up Hour 3 talking Grizzlies with Michael Cole. You're tuned in to Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
make it really easy to park. We have valet parking right at Monroe Street in our alley. We also want to make it easy for people to get to doors. You can now park in our alley right at our front door and put your flashers on. People also forget that we take reservations for 6 or more. And we have a wonderful party room upstairs that can accommodate people for rehearsal dinners, birthday parties, reunions, graduations. Our rooms seat between 25 and 275 people. And everything at the Rendezvous can be packed to go. We also do catering. See our menu online, and we can even deliver for groups of 15 or more. So if you have any questions, always feel free to call us at the Rendezvous because we answer our phone ourselves. You'll never hear, please listen carefully for our menu listing. Press 1 for reservations, press 2 for hours, press 3 for catering, or if you know your party's 9-digit extension number and the first 3 letters of the mother's maiden name, dial it now. Come see us at the Rendezvous. Since 1948, the Rendezvous.
What does it feel like to file with TaxSlayer and get your guaranteed maximum refund? It feels like the last level of a video game, facing off against the final boss who stands between you and your refund. Your refund is delayed. Using the power of TaxSlayer like a superpower upbeat doesn't seem coming. Throwing your laptop in this video game face and watching it crumble into a giant pile of shiny coin tax refunds.
For 75 years, Americans have been falling in love with Volkswagen, and we've gossiped at Gossip Volkswagen Germantown. Hey, what's up over there, Marty McMahon?
Any of these big savings, take your pick lane from a 2025 Jetta Sport or 2024 Volkswagen Taos SE, $249 a month.
Jetta or Taos, $249 a month. What else you got?
2024 Tiguan S or 2025 Jetta SE, $279 a month.
Tiguan S or Jetta SE, $279 a month?
That's right. And all 2024 Atlas SELT edition, $5,000 off MSRP.
So get to Gossip Volkswagen Germantown and ask for Marty McMahon.
Remember, your future is what you make it.
That's Gossip Volkswagen Germantown, 7420 Winchester Road. Online, gossipvwg.com.
Good morning. Finish up a couple of wrecks we had out here a little bit earlier. It's just now deciding to get a little bit heavy at times. Certain sections of town, like 40 West from Germantown Parkway to Sycamore View Road, it's really picked up with volume. 385 Bill Morris Parkway as you come inbound, passing Ridgeway, getting onto 240. Still a little bit of traffic coming up through DeSoto County right now, northbound on 55 up through Hernando, working your way all the way into South Memphis. Hey, if your lawn needs a little bit of help, the solution is Lawn Solutions. Over 30 years experience. Call Lawn Solutions today at 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
This is original sports station. We are Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis.
Welcome back, everyone. 9:03 the time. Hour number 3 here on Sports 56 Mornings. Greg Gaston, Eli Savoy, and Elijah Seegers will be joined in just a few moments by DeMichael Cole to talk some Grizzlies, and then Parthu Pajai at about 9:25 to talk Memphis Tigers basketball. We're broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studios. Family Leisure, 2120 Whitten Road, just north of I-40. Currently 47 degrees. We'll get up to 64 today. Mixture of clouds and some sun, followed by cloudy skies for this afternoon. And then tonight, rain showers early will evolve into a more steady rain overnight. We're looking at 51 for a low. Tomorrow looks like pretty much rain all day. 81% chance, 66 for a high, 55 for a low. And then your Friday, the sun comes back out, 64 for your high. Monday of next week, looking at 71 degrees right now is the forecast for a high temperature. That is unreal. Jenkins Floors and More, they are unreal as well. Hour 3 sponsor of Sports 56 Mornings. If it is flooring or carpeting that you're looking for, this is the place for you. Backsplashes for your kitchens and bathrooms. SPC and WPC vinyls. top-of-the-line, scratch-resistant, ceramic and porcelain tiles. This is the place for you. Plantation shutters and blinds. They have everything in their expansive warehouse. It is Jenkins Floors and More, 2356 Goodman Road in Horn Lake. Visit them today or give them a call at 662-469-9350. They sell the material wholesale. Skip the middleman, save you lots of money in the process. So for all you do-it-yourself homeowners, for contractors out there, it just makes sense to stop by and see what Jenkins has to offer. But also for folks who are looking to put down new carpeting or flooring here in the new year. You don't do it, or you can't do it yourself. You don't want to do it yourself. You call Jenkins. They'll come to you. They'll give you a free estimate, and they'll get the job done in an unheard of 2-week turnaround. That's their promise to you. Financing is available. Sports 56 listeners, ask about your family discount. And for all military and first responders, you always get 10% off. Jenkins Floors and More, 2356 Goodman Road in Horn Lake, or call them at 662-469-9350, open Monday through Saturday. Jenkins Floors and More. Time now to talk some Grizzlies with DeMichael Cole.
It's time to talk some Grizzlies basketball. Joining Greg and Eli is DeMichael Cole, Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. Here's DeMichael with Greg and Eli.
He is DeMichael Cole from the Grizzlies, or Grizzlies beat writer from the Commercial Appeal, I should say. You can follow him on Twitter at DeMichaelC. He joins us every Wednesday all year long to talk Grizzlies, to talk NBA. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, guys. How we doing?
Good. Did you go to the Apple, or did you stay in Memphis?
No, I stayed back for that one.
Okay. Because I wonder if, I know we're kind of making light of it, but, you go to New York, they got a few things to do, DeMichael. I think you know that. I mean, you lived in Philly for a while. You know about the East Coast. Do you think it was one of those deals? This team went to New York, they went out, they tied one on, had a good night in New York, and just never came to play? Or is there an underlying issue with this team when they play some of the better teams in the league and maybe the more physical teams in the league?
No, this wasn't a one-off because there were trends from this game that have been developed from previous games over the course of the season. So I couldn't chalk this up as, maybe some of the mannerisms, like there was some pretty careless turnovers at times or whatever. But at the same time, this was a team that had a lot of quality defenders. They, play, Tom Thibodeau, who has always had these physical teams. We talk about how the Grizzlies have dealt with physicality even after that game in New York. Physicality was a buzzword. Luke Kennard talked about it. Taylor Jenkins talked about it. So that's kind of, been their thing, like adjusting the physicality against certain teams. And if you notice, some of the teams that have gotten the best of them are some of those teams who kind of have that in their identity. And New York is just one of those teams.
There's no doubt the turnovers have been a problem all year. I mean, it was an absolute disaster in New York. And as you said, a lot of just careless turnovers. Like, it wasn't anything New York did. It was like guys just throwing the ball away with no pressure on them. Like, I guess the question is, how do you make guys value the basketball more? Like, what can you do to correct this?
The only thing that comes to mind for me is the one thing that I know they're not going to do, and that is to slow down a little bit.
Yeah,
and that is not their brand. Their brand is, we said it at the beginning of the year, they want to play faster than anyone else in the NBA. We know the upside to that. The upside is when you see the Grizzlies running, sometimes they catch these, defenses, they're all over the place, and they get a bunch of easy shots because of it, whether it's transition threes, whether it's layups, alley-oop dunks. They get a bunch of easy shots because they play so fast, and they have guys like Ja, like Dez, who are comfortable pushing the ball in those situations. But at the same time, you get caught up in playing fast sometimes. It leads to either one, bad shots that are essentially turnovers because you have long rebounds and then the team goes the other way.
Right.
And you end up with 30-plus transition points, like the Knicks did. Or the other thing is you have guys, pushing the basketball that, quite frankly, probably shouldn't be pushing the basketball as much as they are. but it's get the rebound and go with the Grizzlies. So you're seeing, like guys, they get out, and it almost feels like it's a goal to get a shot up, very early. And you're seeing, sometimes like Desmond Bain will be driving the ball up the floor and he'll just lose it, or guys will, throw a pass up ahead and they'll just completely miss the target when they could have just took one more dribble and maybe hit the target right in stride. So I think that's part of it. And they said it from the jump that turnovers would come with the system. And I was, understanding of that. And I think people overall are understanding of that. But it's a difference between turnovers coming, it's part of the system, and then being last in the league in turnovers.
I don't know if you watch Memphis Tigers basketball, but it sounds so much like a description of the Tigers and all their problems with turnovers.
Greg, it's funny that you say that. There was one game, I want to say it was like the Wichita State game, that first half, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I text Jason, and I forgot exactly what he said. I said, all you got to do is take out the Tigers and put Grizzlies right there, and it'll be the same. No one will be able to tell the difference.
Wow, that's incredible, because I was thinking the same things. Like, my gosh, don't we talk about that with every time we talk about the Tigers, we talk about that. DeMichael Cole is joining us on the Sissy's Log Cabin guest lines. Okay, so you already mentioned that this wasn't a one-off against the physical teams. They've had some issues. We have talked with you so many times about whether or not they were going to make a move, and we've brought up a guy like a Cam Johnson, which just more and more doesn't seem like they're going to make any kind of huge trade. But maybe, who knows? But do you think there's something out there that they could add that would help them from a physicality standpoint, make them tougher? Obviously, a Vince Williams and a Marcus Smart gives you better perimeter defenders. But is there somebody on the market that you think maybe they can make a move to become a tougher team once they get to the postseason?
Yeah, I don't see anyone who moves the needle from that standpoint more than those guys that they have out. That's why it's kind of a tough position, because people think the internal growth option is boring, and it almost feels like you're settling in a way.
Right.
But it's not a lot of big time guys out there who bring that. One is the obvious one. Jimmy Butler is definitely someone when you talk about he brings the extra edge. That physicality. He's played on Heat teams who's kind of embodied that as they went on these playoff runs, and they got the Celtics a couple times, not because they were the most talented team, but because they played hard, because they play physical. And Jimmy Butler has been that ever since he was playing for Thibodeau in Chicago as this, second-year player playing 40 minutes trying to make a name for himself. So that's kind of always who he's been. So he makes sense from that standpoint. But yeah, you hit it on the nail. I think with Marcus Smart in particular, like, you can make a very strong argument that this team does not need Marcus Smart. Point taken. But at the same time, I would counter and say those Houston games in particular. There are some other ones that make sense as well, but the Houston games are the ones everybody remembers. They lost 3 times to Houston. Those last 2 losses to Houston, you go into the last minute of the game. It's a single possession game. Houston just looks tougher than you. Marcus Smart flips those games, in my opinion, both of them. He is a difference maker in those games against Houston. Is he a difference maker in some of the other games? Probably not. But against Houston, against some of those more physical teams where you need those guys that have the extra edge, they got those guys. They got Vince. They got Marcus, as you mentioned. The question is going to be, can you rely on them? And we'll figure that out over the course of time. But I don't know if there's too many guys out there that are much better than Vince and Marcus that you can go get and say, yep, that's the guy that's going to turn the tide over here, besides like a Jimmy Butler.
What do you make of Ja getting off of X?
Well, it's good for him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it's nothing really comes good of it other than the branding stuff these days for players. Like, it's a completely different time. Like, I think back to when I first joined, like, when it was Twitter, like 2010, 2011, and players would just get casually on there and be talking about their days. Like, it was very casual back then, but times have changed, It's mostly for just branding now. And Ja is someone, he's tuned in. Like, he's paying attention to what's going on. And then the algorithm, doesn't really help these days. Like, you go to your For You page, and I'm pretty sure for a guy like Ja, like, it's a bunch of Grizzly stuff from people he doesn't follow. So, you're naturally seeing things. And, you've heard Ja say it over the last year or so a lot about trying to protect his peace, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's simply what he's doing. Was it bothering him? I'm pretty sure it was. Like, he just had 10 points and 2 assists. Like, we never see Ja have those types of games. He's had 4 consecutive games of under 20 points. Last time that happened with Ja, his second season in the NBA, April of 2021. So this isn't a typical stretch for him. And then you got all the outside noise. I'm sure he just wants to, rid all of that and kind of just focus in and lock in for this next run ahead of the All-Star break.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. We talked about it in the first hour. I think it's a smart move. I think it's something that you need to do to shut off all the outside noise. Just concentrate on what you have to do. All right, so tomorrow night is the announcement of the All-Star reserves. Any doubt in your mind that Jaren Jackson Jr. will be a part of the Western Conference All-Star team?
I don't have any doubts now. The coaches will make the selections. The coaches have always, talked about how he is the center point of when they playing against the Grizzlies on the defensive end. Now, what he's doing offensively, it's funny, we were talking to, I think it was Will Hardy, and Mike Wallace asked him a question about, what goes into his criteria, for choosing, the All-Star reserves. And then he breaks down certain things that he looks for. And he says, I try not to put too much stock into the games we play against these guys. And then Jaren just goes and scores 28 and makes it look relatively easy. So I think Jaren is someone the coaches are impressed by, and he's had a complete season. Like, he's been available. He's doing it on the defensive end. He's going to make an all-defensive team at this rate. And he's on pace probably to make All-NBA, too. And if you say, hey, a guy who's an all-defensive player and an All-NBA player should probably be an All-Star, too.
All right, and I agree with you 100%. I didn't know, or at least maybe I did and I forgot, that it's all the coaches. I kept thinking that it was just, in this case, it would be Dagnow, the OKC coach. I thought he made the decisions of the reserves, but it's all the coaches get their say.
Yes, concerted effort. So you sometimes you have certain coaches who have relationships with others. They're reaching out, vouching for the guys and things like that. Yeah, it's definitely all of the coaches in the NBA factor into those decisions.
Which makes sense. More opinions.
If I am making the prediction now, does Desmond Bane ever make an All-Star game?
Man, he's in that C.J. McCollum tier right now, right? Like, he's really good, but is he ever going to get over the hump? Man, I don't. It's certain. Like, I think he could sneak one in because there are other factors that'll come into play. I'm sure the West is real guard heavy right now. That landscape will kind of change a little bit. And his game, the way he plays, he has a game that'll age well. So I think he'll get at least a good 5 to 6 more cracks at it. Right now, quite frankly, he's had good seasons, but he still hasn't been close, right? Like, he was, I think, finished somewhere around 12th or 13th among guards, in this last patch of voting, which is solid, right? 12th or 13th among Western Conference guards, but at the same time, only like 5 or 6 of them are getting in. So you're still like a long way down the line. So maybe he sneaks one in, which is something because he told me the other day that he's not doing the 3-point shootout anymore until he's an All-Star. So we won't see him in a 3-point contest unless he's an NBA All-Star.
Well, we may be waiting for a while. He's my favorite player, and I think not this year, but I think he's certainly All-Star caliber. But it's tough when you're not considered the best guard on your team. How many All-Stars? Memphis to get multiple All-Stars in one season has it ever happened in the same season?
Has that? Yeah, it's happened.
Okay,
yeah, Jaren,
but like
Jaren
once?
and Ja did
Jaren
it.
and Ja.
Okay,
Yep,
Jared and Ja,
and
one
Ja was
time.
23.
So it's
They
rare,
did,
especially two guards. So Ja's going to always get that benefit of the doubt, I think, that over Dez, unless he's completely injured.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, it's possible if you have two guards that, like Kyrie and Luka stayed healthy, they probably.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's impossible, but for the Grizzlies, it's
But it's a long shot, right? It's definitely a long shot. So, I mean, Dez has done a really good job of playing off of Ja. He's still capable of, he had that stretch early in the season that pretty much took him out of All-Star run. But if he'd been playing the way like he's played in January, averaging 20 plus, over five assists consistently, like he put himself in the hunt more because he's been available a little bit more than Ja. But at the same time, it's always going to be tough for him being, like you said, the other guard, so to speak.
With Bane, his scoring is the lowest other than his rookie year. His field goal attempts are the fewest other than his rookie year. 3-point attempts, fewest other than his rookie year. Despite the Grizzlies playing at this fastest pace in the NBA, does he need to shoot more?
He has a little bit this month. So it's been I guess you could say more of a concerted effort to get Dez involved. Like, that is something that the players have talked about, his teammates, they've all talked about it. Like, I think that is something that they're definitely kind of prioritizing at this point. So yeah, I think, he'll end this month. Eventually, it's going to be the most minutes he's played in any month. It's going to be the most field goal attempts he's had in any month so far this season. It's going to be the most points scored. And as a result of that, he's shooting 55% from the field so far this month, which is better than December, better than November, better than October. Mm-hmm. He's shooting his highest three-point percentage this month, his highest free throw percentage, total shooting. All his numbers across the board are pretty much what you expected this month. And I think, it's growing within this offense. And it's them just saying, look, like, yes, this offense is going to get guys across the board, more, I guess, shared opportunities, so to speak. But there are guys like Dez. He's got to get more shots than certain guys because he just shoots better.
Yeah, he's on the uptick. There's no question about it with those numbers. All right, final minute, last thing for you. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the physicality or lack thereof, but one guy who is laying down the wood here looks to be Zach Edey. Zach Edey and what happened in the game against Utah, the things that Ja had to say about him, what he had to say. Look, I know he's a big dude, but I didn't think he was like an enforcer type because that was the whole conversation we had before the draft. Can they find a guy like Steven Adams, laying hard screens, getting some rebounds, blocking some shots, occasionally scoring? And Edey's starting to really come into his own the last few games. But did you know he had that kind of mean streak, that physical, and he wants all the smoke? I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think I said it that like this was kind of like his mainstream coming out party. Is that type of guy, but the guys in the locker room, they know. Like I compared him like from a intimidating factor. Like I've compared him to Drago from Rocky IV. Like it's not a lot of words. He'll give you that stare look,
right?
And
I must break you.
Yeah, simple as that. That's his attitude when he's on the floor. Like a good example for you that you probably would have noticed just watching the games was if you go back to the first time they played the Warriors, and that was pre-Draymond calling them soft and all of that. Then go to the matchups after that and watch how it's a concerted effort to let Draymond know, I see you, and I heard what you said, without saying it. I mean, blows to the chest. He's moving them out the way, and we saw that, kind of with Drew Eubanks as well. He asked Ja, is he bothering you? And then the next possession up, he gives Eubanks a nice little shoulder to the chest, which led to Eubanks kind of responding, in the way that he did. So, yeah, he's definitely taken on that enforcer role, and he embraces it. He said, I don't like for people to touch my guys.
I love it. I love it, man. And we love having DeMichael Cole on. Read all his great stories on the Grizzlies at The Commercial Appeal. Follow him on Twitter at DeMichael C. He's with us every single Wednesday. Thank you, DeMichael.
All right, take care, guys.
You too.
DeMichael brought to you by the Exercise Coach, locations in Lakeland and Collierville. This is some really cool stuff, very scientific-based workout stuff, and it only takes 20 minutes twice a week for these workouts. And it is individualized workouts with a trainer there, personal workouts. And let me tell you, the equipment they have, the technology is absolutely out of this world. They test your strength to give you a kind of a starting baseline. As people get older, they lose their strength, and there are certain muscles that you lose in particular, and these workouts are designed to target those muscles, to maintain that strength, to build that strength in those muscles that you normally lose as you get older. It's absolutely scientifically based. This is stuff that was designed exactly by the owner of this, by the designer of this, and this equipment, the technology is absolutely out of this world. You can get 2 free sessions to start the process as well, to check it out, to see what it's all about, get information on their website at exercisecoach.com about exactly what this is. You could go to exercisecoach.com/Lakeland or exercisecoach.com/Collierville. Locations in both for you to go. And again, only 20 minutes twice a week. That's how easy it can be to build that strength, to maintain that strength, and become healthier. Not only do they do strength training, but also nutrition coaching, effective fitness instruction, all of this from the Exercise Coach. So give them a call or go and see them. Exercisecoach.com/Lakeland or exercisecoach.com/Collierville, or give them a call at 901-616-6082, the Exercise Coach.
We're talking Memphis Tigers basketball with Parthu Pajai when we return. This is Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Forget there's a Central Barbecue location in South Haven.
And that's on us.
Well, you.
What does that mean?
Well, you're the spokesperson for Central Barbecue. It's your responsibility to remind people there's a Central Barbecue in South Haven.
It's very convenient that I'm the spokesperson when there's responsibility to be taken.
Just mention the Central Barbecue location in South Haven.
I got a lot to remember. There's the location on Butler downtown. There's a location on Summer, on Poplar.
And Getwell Road in South Haven. How hard is that?
I've heard you call yourself a spokesperson for Central Barbecue.
No, that was just to pick up chicks.
Hi, this is Troy Five-Ash, owner of Five-Ash Roofing. Did you know there are so many roofing companies in Memphis that I don't even know them all? So that begs the question, which one should you choose? So I thought I'd give you a little background about me. My grandfather was a World War II Marine. My father worked for the University of Memphis for nearly 30 years. My mother, a pianist at Raleigh Baptist Church. Seems like forever. I went to Brownsville Road, Craigmont, and Bartlett High School, class of 81. We support the local school systems, youth athletics, and believe in what St. Jude and Le Bonheur stand for. I'm a Tiger and Grizz fan. The point? Memphis is my home. Five Ash Roofing will be around if you ever have a problem with the service we provide. 5 Ash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical with deep local ties in our community. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
5 Ash Roofing is what we do. We're here for you.
Mid-South, it's time for a new year and a new ride from Gossett Mitsubishi on the Pike. Get 2024 Mitsubishi Mirage, a perfect compact hatchback for commutes, getaways, and just about everything else for $299 a month. Or buy Mirage for $18,410, gets 43 mpg highway. Or take your pick from 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid PHEV, named 2025 Family Green Car of the Year for 3 straight years. Or 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander, now just $399 a month. Plus, get peace of mind with Mitsubishi's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. Get to Gossett Mitsubishi today to start your year off right. 1870 Covington Pike and 24/7 at memphismitsubishi.com.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
Military rebate Mirage RHO 15630, MSRP 18410, PHEV RZO 66681, MSRP 42750, Outlander RZO 88655, MSRP 32770. Includes all rebates and incentives. PF 695 excludes tax title and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through end of the month. Dealer stock only.
Online radio show is back on WHBQ Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Every Monday night at 6, hear the latest news on your Ole Miss Rebels with Nancy Porter with 24/7 Sports. Your Ole Miss defensive captain Mike Fitzsimmons, Gordon Ford covering SEC sports ball, and former Ole Miss baseball announcer Gary Garvey from kickoff and free throw to extra innings. Your Ole Miss sports on the Rebel Yellow Hotline show right here Monday night at 6 on Sports 56, 560 AM and 98.5 FM. Your Mid-South sports station.
Now back to Sports 56 mornings on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour brought to you by Here once again are Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy.
Welcome back, everybody. 9:30 is the time. Parthu Pajai joins us in just a moment. I saw where Mike McCarthy has said that he's not going to pursue the Saints job and is going to obviously wait until see what happens in 2026. There's only one head coaching vacancy right now, so Mike McCarthy will not be in this cycle. But it looks like Kellen Moore, who interviewed in New Orleans, has a great chance. Nothing's concrete or 100% right now, but Kellen Moore could end up, after the Eagles season is done, which is in the Super Bowl, becoming the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. And the Cowboys had certainly an opportunity to grab him and decided to go in a different direction with Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah, he's the kind of the default guy in New Orleans with no McCarthy, Cliff Kingsbury not wanting that job. So looks like Kellen Moore we're probably going to be their default guy.
Time now to talk some Memphis Tigers basketball with Parthu Pajai.
It's time to talk Memphis Tigers basketball. Joining Greg and Eli is Parth Upadhyay, the Tigers beat reporter for the Daily Memphian. Now here's Parth with Greg and Eli.
Each and every week we get a chance to talk Tigers basketball with Parthu Pajai from the Daily Memphian. Today on the phone as Parth is getting set to head down to the Big Easy as the Parth Tour continues in 2024-25. Now you go to the Big Easy. Nice little trip.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. This season's been full of nice trips, as we've talked about. We can go back and count them all, but, Maui, Vegas, San Francisco, Philly, just, a week and a half ago, and now we're headed to, like you said, the Big Easy, and then following that up right with Houston. So a nice, fun two-city road swing here coming up.
Yeah,
and lucky that you're going to New Orleans this week and not last week when it was snowed in.
No, you know what? I was hoping, there was no chance, right? I was hoping by some miracle there'd be winter weather again, because you just don't see that in New Orleans, right? It's like it's a once-in-a-lifetime ordeal for there to be snow on the ground in New Orleans. I think that would have been cool. I don't know what that would have done to my travel plans, but it would have been nice to see.
That's always the concern.
Probably wouldn't have been a game being played, so we had no reason to go there.
Exactly.
There is that.
Although it's in the 60s in Memphis, it's going to be 70 on Monday. I imagine it's going to be fairly warm in New Orleans.
Yeah, I was looking at the weather yesterday as I was packing, and both New Orleans and Houston more than New Orleans, but both of them fairly warm. I think the lowest it's getting during my 3 days in the Big Easy is 48. Which is really not bad considering how cold it's been in Memphis this winter.
Absolutely. All right, look, these are two games in which Memphis has to reach down deep inside and find that excitement that we saw on Sunday. And again, it's not the easiest thing to do, to be able to manufacture this this excitement about playing a team. Maybe a little different in New Orleans because Tulane has had some success against Memphis, but probably tougher to get up and get fired up to play a team like Rice, albeit a road game. But these are teams that you have to take care of business. But let's go back to Sunday, when getting up for that game was no issue. Memphis was ready, willing, and able. And every time they are dialed in, Parth, they seem to be able to, play up to that ability, that play to their max ability. And we saw one of their better games of the season in every facet on Sunday against UAB.
Yeah, I think it might have been their most complete game of the season. Obviously, you scored 99 against UConn. You play Clemson really well, have a great offensive showing there, great shooting game there in Little John Coliseum. But in terms of both ends of the floor, in terms of fixing all the issues that have plagued this team for weeks, talk about rebounding. They out-rebounded UAB, which is a great offensive rebounding team. You talk about ball security. Turnovers have been an issue all throughout league play. They only had 13. 13 seems like a big number, sure, but if you put it in context, that's the lowest amount of turnovers the Tigers have had through league play. So when you look at both sides of the ball, plus fixing the things that had kind of held this team back for the better part of January, you got to look at it as their best game, most complete game, no doubt.
Penny makes the move with Dane Danger into the starting lineup. First of all, were you surprised to see that? And do you expect now to see that going forward, that he'll stay in that starting lineup?
No, I wasn't surprised. I actually asked Penny about Dane Danger switching roles with Musa, as the starter. I believe it was Wednesday, so the day before the Wichita State game on Thursday. And then he kind of said that he had spoken to both Dane and Musa, I guess, weeks ago, about it being a possibility that when he felt Dane was ready, he would reinsert Dane into the starting lineup. Because people forget, but Dane started, in that starting center role the first 3 games of the season, right? Right. He started against Mizzou, UNLV, and Ohio. And it was then, with that first game in San Francisco before Maui, when Penny made that switch to Musa. And Penny kind of explained it, not after the most recent game against UAB, but he explained it during that presser, the midweek presser before Wichita State, and he said that, he was just looking for Dane to run the floor better, defend better, and just hustle. He wanted to see kind of Dane bust his butt behind the scenes before he just gave him that starting role. And I think that goes back to Penny's maturity as a coach, right? We know in the past, Penny may have just kind of, sharpied a guy like Dane Danger in because he's so talented and so gifted and so skilled into a starting center spot, but to now leverage that and to make a guy like Dane, as talented as he is, earn that role, and not give it to him until he felt he had done just that, earned it. Kind of goes back to Penny's maturation, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. The things that he has said, he has followed through. He's pushed the right buttons. I think absolutely you have seen the progress of his coaching ability. He's just different. Everything about him is different. I think he's taking more into consideration what his staff is saying to him. I think he really loves this staff. This staff maybe, and I would have to ask him, but it might be his favorite of all the staffs he's put together. And we know there's been a revolving door as far as assistant coaches are concerned. And what's interesting with Danger is a couple of years ago at Illinois, he started. Then last year, he didn't start. So here's a guy who has come off the bench and has started at different times in his career. But I thought it was the right move and the right time to make that move because I think they needed to get out of the gate quickly against UAB and try to knock UAB off their game, which they did. And Danger went right at – it looked like Yaxel Lendeborg defended him early, and then he didn't defend him the rest of the way. I mean, he did not. He wasn't going up against him for whatever reason. I didn't understand AK's strategy as far as that's concerned, but Danger was absolutely dominating whoever they put on him, and I think that was probably the move to invigorate the front line to score, to help out the perimeter players, to get that instant offense going and to get Memphis off to a good start, which they obviously did.
No, I agree. I think the first 2 or 3 buckets, including that dunk, obviously the one that's since gone viral on X and other social media platforms, and that's caused the back and forth chirping between Dane Danger and Yaxel Lindeborg. I think everybody knows what dunk I'm talking about.
Yes.
That basket plus a couple others were directly on Yaxel, but then when guards were switching on to Dane, it was just, he was feasting, right? It was even easier. Not that Yaxel was doing much to hold him down anyway, but when, those 6'6", 6'7" guys were switching on to Dane, he kind of had his way even more so. But I also think something that's overlooked is Penny's trust in Dane, because you look at what Yaxel does, and he's probably, first or second best big in this conference, right? In terms of offense production and what he can do, and
no question,
and how he can play make. Well, you're taking a guy that's defensive minded in Musa Cisse, that's proven himself on that side of the ball, out of the game for Dane Danger, who's had struggles with both foul trouble and defending, and kind of trusting him to hold his own. So I think that's something that hasn't been discussed enough.
Based on his last couple performance, do you think we'll continue to see more of PJ Carter as kind of that seventh guy?
Yeah, you got to think so. PJ's just been Carter that has been way more aggressive the past 2 games. Last game was obviously his best game at 14 points. I think he hit, 2 or 3 3-pointers, got to the free throw line a bit. I think you're going to start to see him solidify himself as that 6th or 7th man, obviously off the bench, right next to Musa Cisse, who Penny said will be coming off the bench for the foreseeable future now, with Dane Danger being reinserted into the starting lineup.
I know you like to, and you're not the only one, look at the bracketologists and where they have Memphis.
Yeah.
Jerry Palm was just on our show. He had dumped them a couple of lines after last week, or last week in his bracketology. This week, he's moved them up. He's moved them up from 6 to 5. A lot of that has to do with teams that lost around Memphis, but also the Memphis performance, winning 2 games last week, especially a 23-point win over UAB. But I asked him about, and again, this is purely speculation, but if for some reason they ran the table, I don't think they can. I think it's impossible. But if they ran the table, how high could they go? And he said, look, 3's not out of the question, right? 4 is more likely. But every time you lose, it's incredibly damaging. But right now, Memphis has taken care of business in non-conference. They've done a great job so far in conference, although they haven't played exceptional games every time out. The point is, they have to understand mentally. I don't think it's a question of getting the players to understand. I think they know what's at hand. What's at stake, right? You lose a game, you're dropping a line. Yeah, you lose a game, you're dropping. It's not. I don't think that they don't understand it. It's just, how do you fire yourself up for each game? It's easy to fire yourself up to play UAB, right? That didn't take much. It's easy to fire yourself up for Michigan State and Clemson and Connecticut and Ole Miss. But how do you do it for the rest of these games? I think that's going to be the biggest question on whether or not Memphis can actually be a 3, a 4, a 5 seed, or they're going to drop down to a 7, 8, or 9.
Yeah, and obviously Jerry Palm would know much more than I do, certainly, about bracketology, because he is the guy that does it. He is the expert. But I think a 3 would be very far-fetched, even if they did run the table, right? You look at what Memphis did against UAB, blowing the doors off that team, winning by 23, and you look at how much they moved in the metrics, in the Ken Palm, in the net rankings, and it's incremental at best, right? Like the Tigers moved, I want to say, from 43 to 41.
Yeah, but he explained the whole metrics. But Parth, he really broke it down, how it's not. We assume that committee just looks at the number in the net, and that's where they're going to seed these teams. I mean, he explained it incredibly well how it all works. And if Memphis ran the table, it is not, to me, it is not out of the question that they could be a 3, because other teams are going to be losing games and losing multiple games. I don't think it's nuts.
That is true. That is true. Man, that'd be special. And I think that's the main question now, right? That's the main narrative around this team, is like, hey, is the performance that the Tigers put up against UAB, with that focus, that intensity, that energy, is that the turning of a corner, in the sense of, are they going to do that for the next 11 games? Are they going to mow through this weak league? Or was it, like you said, Greg, UAB, they feel disrespected. Yaxel Lindeborg's the AAC preseason player of the year, and this team was picked before you, and that kind of motivation juicing you up. Was it just that? Or can they bottle that juice up and and drink it for the next 11 games. I think that's the biggest question. But you look at the next, and John Martin and I were talking about this on our Tigers podcast, the Daily Memphian Tigers podcast, and looking at the next 3 or 4 games. But, you know, there's narratives around each of these, right? Tulane, okay. Tulane you've struggled with. Penny can sell them on that. Hey, we've struggled with Ron Hunter's teams, especially in New Orleans. You know, they've got something on us. It's voodoo, whatever you want to call it. Rice. PJ Carter was committed to Rice before he left Rice for Memphis this offseason. So you've got that angle. Tulsa, it's the PJ Haggerty revenge game. PJ Haggerty started Tulsa last year. Temple had your number just weeks ago.
Right.
So these next 4 games, there are narratives that Penny and the staff and the players themselves can attach, you know, their mentalities to get amped up, to get juiced up, despite these not being your typical brand names per se.
You mentioned Tulane and the problems they've had, especially at Tulane. And Tulane in conference play, if you look at some of their numbers, they've been pretty good, both offensively and defensively in conference play. So what do you expect tomorrow night down in New Orleans?
Yeah, Tulane's interesting, right? Because they struggled heavily through non-league play against a schedule that was not very good at all in terms of strength. But they've turned this thing around, and they're sitting obviously tied for second with UAB in the league. I think it's going to be a different cast of characters, obviously. You know, you don't have the Jalen Forbes and the Steon James and then those guys that were at Tulane the past 2 years, but same style of play, right? You've got long guards, guys that can shoot the three, and a team that's going to try to feast off disruption, try to turn you over, get out in transition. That's how Tulane has won these games in league play.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Wave has, you know, turned teams over kind of left and right here so far. I think they had 15 against Charlotte, or 17, against Charlotte, 17 forced turnovers, 14 against UTSA, 15 against South Florida, and 15 against Florida Atlantic. Like, that's how those wins have come. And you would hope, if you're a Tigers fan, that the Tigers are just as deliberate and just as crisp in their ball security, in their ball movement on offense, as they were against UAB.
Yeah, that's great analysis. They're going to try to disrupt. Ron Hunter's a really good coach. They have not poured in money into that program. It limits him what he can do NIL. When they get a quality player, they lose the quality player the next year to somebody who can pay that player. I think Ron's a good coach. They'll be ready. They've had success, but I think Penny will be ready as well. And hopefully they have turned the corner as far as ball protection and things of that nature. So I think I'm not concerned about Rice. I think they can. I don't want to say you roll out the ball and beat Rice. Rice is actually okay, but you got to find self-motivation. It's not always up to the coach. You're not coaching 12-year-olds. These players have to dig down deep inside and find whatever it is to motivate them. But they have to get it done because they know the stakes. They know what's at stake. We saw what they're capable of doing on Sunday firsthand. That's how good this team is. And they're superior to all these other teams in the league. They just got to go out there and take care of business. He's Parthu Pajai. He covers Memphis Tigers basketball for the Daily Memphian. He's with us every single Wednesday to talk about the Tigers. Safe travels down in New Orleans, Parth. We'll talk to you next week.
All righty. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Take care.
Fleet Feet is the place to go to get all the running gear that you need, especially you want to get shoes that are just right for you. Well, that's what they'll do for you at Fleet Feet, either one of their 2 locations. You could go in there, they take a look at the way you run, the way you walk, and fit you with the shoes that are just right for you based on where you put the weight and different parts of your feet. And all the shoes are a little bit different, and everybody's a little bit different in the way they walk and the way they run. So go see them either in the Laurelwood Shopping Center in East Memphis or out in Collierville at Poplar Houston Levy next to the Hueys out there, and let them take a look at you running, walking, and get you those shoes that are just right for you. Plus any other gear that you need, they've got you taken care of at Fleet Feet.
Another Tiger who's being singled out this week at practice, this time for the Shrine Bowl, which will take place tomorrow night. We'll tell you all about that when we return for our final segment. This is Sports 56 Mornings with Greg and Eli on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Join the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin, for Wolo and Friends. Weekday mornings from 10 to 11 here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Shop, compare, and save from hundreds of experts to turn your dream home into a reality. We have everything to help you remodel, refresh, and beautify your home inside and out. So come on out to the Home Show of the Mid-South, January 31st through February 2nd at the Agri Center. You'll find special show pricing on kitchens, baths, patios, and landscaping, flooring, cabinets, windows, roofing. It's all at the Home Show of the Mid-South, January 31st through February 2nd at the Agri Center. Visit MemphisHomeShow.com. That's MemphisHomeShow.com.
Nestled in the heart of East Memphis, located corner of Park and Cherry, is a beautiful residential neighborhood. I'm here at Town Village Audubon Park interviewing a new resident, Carolyn. Share with us why you chose Town Village.
Well, if your parents or special friends need to make that big move, let me share with you my experience. It was tough for me to leave home, but then I discovered Town Village. I would like to highly recommend Town Village to you and your loved ones. After looking at all the amenities and meeting all the people and the staff, I was hooked. From restaurant, bistro, 3 meals per day, housekeeping, transportation, security, health care, physical therapy, exercise room, and even a heated pool and spa. Come see us and make your new home in Town Village.
Visit us and call Daniel at Town Village Audubon Park at 901-374-7342. There's no place like home, Town Village.
I'm Gary York. I'm the service director of Lexus in Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place where you get your oil changed. We do glass repair, windshield replacement, recalibration of your camera and sonar systems, even wheel repair, tire replacement, all the things you would expect from a luxury automotive dealer. Please check out our website. You can schedule your appointment, check out our specials, hours of operation, or if you'd like to do it in person, please reach out to one of our associates at 901-271-5199.
Join John, Jerry, and Dez and your Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow night at 8:30 when they host the Houston Rockets. It's time to get loud, rally the squad, and get ready for an epic matchup by securing your tickets today at Grizzlies.com.
Now back to Sports 56 mornings on Sports 56.
The 100th annual East-West Shrine Bowl game. Well, 100 East-West Shrine Bowl All-Star games there have been. Will take place tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. I was talking earlier in the week about Mario Anderson, who was the Hula Bowl offensive MVP. He's playing. And I said, I know there's some other Tigers, and I completely forgot about Chandler Martin. There might even be more, but Chandler Martin is one of the standouts in practice this week at a Shrine Bowl practice. Chad Reuter from NFL.com writes about Martin. He was smooth dropping into coverage and reading the quarterback in practice, even ripping the ball away from Miami wide receiver Sam Brown on a check down throw Saturday. Linebackers don't really get to show their physicality as tacklers during practice, but with his reaction time and aggression to the ball on run plays, Martin reminded me of some previous sub-6 foot linebacker prospects who've enjoyed success at the next level. Nick Bolton, Nakobe Dean, who's from Horn Lake, Dre Greenlaw, and Michael Kendrick. So he has Chandler Martin is one of the 10 standouts from Shrine Bowl practices. We'll see what he does in the game. But, again, here's a guy, physically, from a height standpoint, you go, nah, I don't know. How can he make it in the NBA? He just has it. He has what it takes. I will be shocked if that guy does not make it in the NFL.
Ultra productive. And in the end, if you're looking for guys who can be ultra productive or to be productive at the next level, I look for guys who were ultra productive at the college level, and he was ultra productive.
And again, we talked about the Senior Bowl. That'll take place this weekend. Seth Hennigan is turning eyes certainly at the practice in Mobile. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, another one of the quarterbacks that'll be participating. And right now, he's done very, very well. All right. We're a week away from National Signing Day.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh. Just seemed like yesterday that we were talking about the signing class. All right, so
we were talking about the early signing period a month ago, or a little over, I guess.
Yeah,
almost 2 months ago now.
Hopefully it'll go to the one signing class is what the coaches want. But, it's just amazing that you turn around. Here's another one. So I was reading this story. This is really cool. This is from Al.com, Alabama.com. They do all things Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm sure you've seen the commercial where the one dude is saying, high tide, right? The Crimson Tide or the actors playing the players are coming off the bus, and instead of saying roll tide, he's saying high tide. Everybody had to see that commercial. Well, Michael Casagrande at Al.com was able to track down the actor who is British. His name is Simon Kane. Said it wasn't easy to track this guy down because he lives across the big pond. But he was able to find him via Zoom. They talked about it. It's really an interesting story because he said he really didn't get it. He didn't understand it. Obviously, he didn't really know American football and college football at that and the whole damn thing. But he talked about how much response he is getting to it. He plays in a BBC show called Ghosts, which has now the American adaptation that airs on CBS. But it is a really cool story about this goof that has become really big for him with notoriety, but around our country, everybody has seen it a million times. Some don't like it. I love it. I think it's really, really funny. But he's a British actor, by the way, in case you didn't know, who was tracked down by Al.com.
We will have Ole Miss basketball tonight here on Sports 56, 7:30 the pregame, 8 o'clock tip-off down at the Pavilion as Ole Miss welcomes in Texas. Important game for Ole Miss as they try and end their 3-game losing streak. And, of course, with number 1 Auburn coming in on Saturday, you certainly don't want to lose to Texas on your home floor. Big game down in Starkville tonight as Mississippi State hosts Alabama. Mississippi State actually a slight favorite in that one over Alabama. And then, of course, Auburn, the number 1 team in the country, they are on the road tonight at LSU as well in SEC play.
And the Grizzlies, again, don't play until tomorrow night. They'll host the Houston Rockets on what will be a busy night for the area sports fans, with the Tigers playing in New Orleans against Tulane. And, again, the Grizzlies hosting the Houston Rockets. That's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow on the program, Kerry Miller will join us at 8:25. We'll talk college basketball. We'll talk some Major League Baseball as well with Kerry. And then we are basketball heavy in hour number 3. Matt Moore will join us at 9:05. We'll talk all things NBA. Michael Wallace from Grind City Media on the Grizzlies and the NBA as well at 9:25. That's all coming up tomorrow, starting bright and early at 7 a.m. Waldo and Friends on Sports 56 is coming up next, so stay tuned for that. For Eli Savoy and for Elijah Seegers, I'm Greg Gaston. Have a great day, everybody.